Chapter 1066. The doctors behind her carried their medicine boxes and walked forward. Just as they were about to get close to the devil class students to check on their injuries, all of a sudden, a whirlwind separated the doctors from each other. Yiqing Luo looked at the director expressionlessly as she spoke in a cold voice. "Thank you, director, for your concern." The director's expression congealed. "Student Yi, now is not the time to throw a tantrum. These children's injuries are serious, don't delay their treatment." "No need." She calmly spat out her words, not giving any face to the director. The director's face sunk. Yiqing Luo was usually arrogant in the academy and he had turned a blind eye to it. But in front of so many people she even gave him the director's face. Wouldn't it be a joke to the outsiders? His arrogance flared up as he shouted sternly, "This principal knows that the students of devil class were attacked and you're feeling upset, but the injuries on these students can't wait any longer. If you continue to obstruct me, don't blame me for locking you up in the dungeon for the students' health." Yiqing Luo raised her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes were devoid of emotions. She stared straight at the director. Her beautiful face was calm and tranquil like still water. But it made one's heart turn cold. Even the director, who had been through all kinds of storms, was stunned by this pair of eyes. He opened his mouth, but his voice seemed to be stuck in his throat. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards, forming an extremely cold arc. Just as she was about to open her mouth, an elegant voice interrupted her. "Since Student Yi isn't willing to let these doctors bandage the children's injuries, then let me treat these children's injuries." A handsome man in a white robe walked over slowly. The fluttering robe made him look like a celestial being, as though he was a deity. The entire crowd was silent for a moment before the director reacted. Supreme Mo, the other teachers, elders and students immediately bowed respectfully and greeted. Supreme Mo Dmo Xian waved his hand and walked directly to Yiqing Luo's side. "Student Yi, what do you think?" On seeing Dmo Xian's appearance, Yiqing Luo's tensed heart finally relaxed a little. Her cold eyes also softened. She lowered her eyes and didn't respond. She took it as a tacit agreement to Dmo Xian's words. Yi Fengyu's disappearance, the devil class students being attacked. These matters were like a 1,000-catty boulder, pressing down on her heart. She wanted to pounce into Dmo Xian's arms, wanting to draw the energy from him to hold on. But under the watchful eyes of so many people, she couldn't do such a thing. Yiqing Luo hadn't realized it herself. Unknowingly, she had become more and more reliant on Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian gazed at Yiqing Luo's curly eyelashes, casting a long and narrow shadow under his eyelids, covering those eyes that could charm all living things. Dmo Xian sighed softly. He understood Yiqing Luo's feelings towards these students. He understood Yiqing Luo's current feelings. At the same time, he was glad that his girl did not lose her mind because of her anger and seek revenge from the dark forces everywhere. Her state of mind was so strong that even he was ashamed of his inferiority. He resisted the urge to pull Yiqing Luo into his arms as his solemn peach blossom eyes looked towards the director. "Since Supreme Imo is going to treat these students personally, I naturally have no objections." The director saw Supreme Imo standing out to speak and he immediately echoed in a low voice. "I need an independent courtyard, no one is to disturb me," Dmo Xian ordered calmly. The director accepted the order and took a look at Yun Xiang. Chapter 1067. In the independent courtyard. Yiqing Luo arranged all the students into 3 rows in the courtyard. She specially asked Bei Ming Lu to refine the internal injury pills and fed them to each of them. Long Yunzhan and Xiao Jin then helped these students to apply the medicine and bandage their wounds. Yen Xiaoyi, Kitty Li and Mo Yuing were the most seriously injured. The 3 of their injuries were personally treated by Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo was applying the ointment on Yen Xiaoyi's scars when her wrist was suddenly pulled by her. "Qing Luo?" Yiqing Luo slowly moved her hand away as she said softly, "Don't move." "I'm sorry." Yen Xiaoyi's voice was very weak. "They ran away and they brought the corpses of the other dark forces away." The appearance of the dark forces was too sudden. They had yet to react in time when they were attacked by the dark forces as they abandoned their helmets and armor. With the cooperation of the few of them, they killed a few dark forces men. But in the end they had no way to protect those students as they were beaten up by the dark forces guardians till they didn't even have the energy to stand up. If it wasn't for the fact that Peach Blossom 3000's eyes discovered the scene at the rear mountain and swiftly reported it to Peach Blossom 3000, there was a possibility that they would die in the hands of the dark forces. Yiqing Luo caressed the stray hair on her forehead as she comforted her gently. "You've done very well. No matter, take good care of your injuries and leave the rest to me. Yan Xiaoyi took a deep breath, but it caused her wound to be in extreme pain. She was in so much pain that her eyebrows creased. Yiqing Luo was about to inject profound qi into her to ease the pain. Her shoulder was covered by a large palm as a man's deep voice rang beside her ear. You still need to take care of the others, let me do it. Yiqing Luo turned back and met with a face which wasn't considered as handsome, but that pair of deep pupils made one feel as though they had fallen into an abyss. It was Qiao Jin. She nodded and passed Yan Xiaoyi to him. She had just stood up when she heard a student holding his injured arm as he asked in a low voice, Boss Qing Luo, for tomorrow's competition This question attracted the other students' gazes towards Yiqing Luo. Such a huge matter has happened, the interclass competition should be delayed, right? After all, we are the class that will be taking part in the competition. Qiao Jin frowned. I won't. Yiqing Luo's eyes seemed to be swirling with a whirlpool which made one fearful. The Academy's interclass competition has already been announced and it will officially start tomorrow. Various forces from all over the world have come and representatives from various academies. It's impossible that because of us, a trash class, the competition will be delayed. The students' bodies stiffened. Then tomorrow? If there was no delay, how could they participate in the competition in this state? The reputation of the devil class was not important. It didn't matter that they were still labeled as trash. Most importantly, the blood oath that Yiqing Luo and Shangguan Liuli had made. If she was unable to win, wouldn't Yiqing Luo be? They didn't dare to think further. A student stumbled down from the makeshift wooden mat and stubbornly tried to stand up. However, the wounds on his body made it extremely strenuous for him. The young man's face was covered in cold sweat as he endured the intense pain. But he stubbornly stuck out his chest. Boss Qing Luo, I can still fight. I can participate in tomorrow's match. The other students also propped themselves up, wanting to climb up from the wooden mat. Some simply couldn't stand properly and fell down again. However, those stubborn young faces were filled with determination and unwillingness to admit defeat. Boss, I can fight too. Right? I can fight too. Chapter 1068. Looking at these youngsters, their stubborn and strong looks. Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to have been pierced by a needle fiercely. The luster in her eyes dimmed slightly, flowing with a chilly intent. She clenched her fists tightly, trying hard to control her own emotions. She must not be impulsive. At least now, in front of the students, she absolutely must not be impulsive. If you still don't cooperate with the treatment, let's see how you're going to enter the battlefield tomorrow. A mellow and hoarse voice rang gently, suppressing all the students' agitation. A warm palm was placed on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. The familiar sandalwood scent seeped into her nose. It made Yiqing Luo's agitated heart gradually calm down. Her tensed-up body slowly softened, leaning towards the man behind her. He actually wasn't as strong as she looked on the surface. She had been calmly arranging everything because she knew very well. She must not be flustered and must not fall. Otherwise, the youngster's willpower would also change along with her. Master Amo, your meaning is? Tomorrow? The students heard the meaning in Dmo Xian's words, as their eyes revealed a joyous expression. Dmo Xian nodded lightly. I have a risky idea which can allow you to be like ordinary people for the next half a month, to stand on the competition arena, to take part in the competition. 60 over pairs of eyes, all looked towards Dmo Xian. In their eyes it was filled with hope. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly felt a sense of nervousness. Her slender brows creased tightly as she grabbed Dmo Xian's collar. You can't be. That's not considered as the competition's banned drug. Dmo Xian caressed Yiqing Luo's silky hair as he pulled her into his embrace as he spoke in a warm voice. In a while, someone will send the medicine back. Those medicinal pills can speedily heal all the injuries on the body, but the medicinal effect can only last for half a month. Half a month was enough. The interclass competition was split into 4 rounds: preliminary round, semifinals, finals and grand finals. The time limit was roughly around half a month or so. That medicine's side effect. Qiao Jin lowered his eyes as he looked at Yan Xiaoyi in his embrace, as he asked in a low voice. Dmo Xian's gaze was calm as his expression remained gentle. Half a month later, you will be suffering from the injuries now, 100 times, 1,000 times of pain. Everything had a price. After taking the elixir, the wounds on their bodies as well as the ailments in their bodies would be healed in an instant. However, half a month later, They will suffer psychological and physical pain. No way. Yiqing Luo's expression changed when she heard that. This method is too risky, I cannot accept it. Such a price was something that these youths who had yet to completely mature were unable to bear. I agree. It's all right. It was just 1,000 times more painful. Even if it's 10,000 times, I can still endure it. I am willing to accept. Those youngsters who usually listen to Yiqing Luo's arrangements opened their mouths to stop Yiqing Luo's decision for the first time. They clenched their fists and looked at Diamo Xian unwaveringly. Supreme Master Imo, we are willing to take the pill. We want to participate in the inter-class competition. That kind of pain isn't just physical pain. Before Yiqing Luo could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by an icy cold voice. Qing Luo, we can take it. Chapter 1069. Qing Luo, please. Don't stop us. We've worked so hard for so long to protect you, to protect everyone, to protect the devil class which belongs to us. We really give up now. What's the meaning of our persistence? Even if I really can't hold on for half a month, I will absolutely not regret it. At least I've fought hard for you. The students' eyes were filled with determination as they looked at Yiqing Luo. After a long time, Yiqing Luo was defeated. If it was her, she would also choose to endure thousands of times more pain in exchange for this, to fight for the person she cared about. She couldn't reject their hearts to fight for her, nor could she stop their persistence. Will accompany you. Yiqing Luo slowly curled her pink lips. This was after they found out that Yi Fengyu had gone missing and devil class was attacked. It was the first smile with warmth. In less than 1 hour, someone from the Imperial Palace sent over 2 bottles of medicinal pills. Diamo Xian passed it to Long Yunzhan and Xiao Jin, letting the students consume it. Looking at the students touching their wounds in surprise as they gradually recovered, her emotions were extremely complicated. This is their choice, you don't need to feel guilty. Diamo Xian had appeared beside her, with one arm around her shoulder. With me around, Xiao Yu and everyone, we'll be fine. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as she buried her face into his chest. Her hands tightly wrapped around his firm waist. Diamo Xuanhuan hugged her body tightly. As for little Yu's side, I will let the people from the Imperial Palace search everywhere, and also try to find the nest of the dark forces in Nirvana realm. You just need to focus on bringing everyone to watch the interclass competition. Amen. Yiqing Luo responded to Diamo Xian's words. The dark forces actually dare to touch the people around me, they have already touched my bottom line. The dark forces schemed against her, hurt her. She wouldn't have such huge emotions, only waiting for the best opportunity to return the favor 100 times over. But to hurt the people around her, she absolutely couldn't tolerate it. The interclass competition was brought forward. It must be related to the King of Darkness. If they won first place, they would have the chance to find out the location where the King of Darkness was sealed. She twitched her lips as her eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Didn't the King of Darkness want to break the seal? She wanted to let the King of Darkness taste despair. He wanted the King of Darkness to regret his actions today for the rest of his life. Lil Luo, Diamo Xian's palm covered her eyes. The man's deep and gentle voice rang beside her ear. I've said it before. Don't show such an expression when you're by my side. Those eyes were devoid of emotion. However, it was cold and ruthless to the point that it caused him to feel a chill in his heart. He didn't want to see any murderous intent or hatred in Yiqing Luo's seductive eyes. Yiqing Luo did not reply. Her long curly eyelashes swept across his palm. Slowly, her tense body leaned into his embrace again. She closed her eyes and forcefully suppressed the anger and murderous intent in her heart. With Diamo Xian and the 3,000 peach blossoms, news of Yi Fengyu's whereabouts should be obtained soon. What she needed to do was to strive for victory in the interclass competition tomorrow. After staying silent for a moment, after Yiqing Luo's emotions stabilized, she raised her eyes and looked at Diamo Xian. I want to go somewhere. I'll go with you. He knew where she was going. Chapter 1070. The night was cold and the entire dormitory was dead silent. The stars in the sky flickered as if shrouded in a layer of dark curtain, making one feel inexplicably depressed. 2 figures flitted across the sky and finally stopped in a dormitory room. One of the petite figures came close. She looked into the room through the open window. She saw Shangguan Liuli alone, sitting on the wooden chair with a face full of fear, trembling all over. And in front of her, there was only a man in a black robe, with a hood covering his head. This dressing was exactly the Dark Forces man. Yiqing Luo looked at the right arm of the black robe. On the black robe, there was a tiny dragon totem embroidered, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as if it wanted to overturn the clouds and overturn the sea. This was the symbol of a protector. Xian, the Dark Forces protector. Yiqing Luo bowed silently. Dmo Xian's gloomy eyes were as deep as the sea. He nodded and hugged Yiqing Luo's slender waist. But in the blink of an eye, the two had quietly sneaked in through another window. The Shangguan family must have specially arranged for Shangguan Lioli. Shangguan Lioli's room was extremely spacious, divided into 2 floors, inner room and outer hall. Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo were at the corner of the outer hall. From this angle, they could clearly hear the conversation between Shangguan Lioli and the black-robed protector, as well as their actions. "You. Where did you lock him?" Shangguan Lioli lowered her voice and asked uneasily. "You don't need to know." The black-robed protector replied impatiently, "If there is nothing important, please do not release the black bird so as not to expose our identity." "I have something important, that's why I'm looking for you." Shangguan Lioli's emotions were unstable. She grabbed the black-robed protector's hand. "I just almost died, do you know? That woman wanted to kill me." The black-robed protector shook off her hand. His tone was extremely impatient. "If she is a smart person, she won't kill you." Shangguan Lioli listened to his casual words and then thought of herself. She almost died in Yiqing Luo's hands. Her heart suddenly felt indignant. She pounded the table and stood up. "What do you think I am? What do you mean by that woman is a smart person? What if Yiqing Luo really killed her in anger? What do you mean by cooperating with me? I think you're just using me on purpose." Shangguan Lioli was infuriated. "You're the one who asked me to use Yiqing Luo to lure Yi Fengyu out, and then let the killers from the killer hall kidnap Yi Fengyu. Now that something has happened and was discovered by Yiqing Luo, you want to push me out to be a scapegoat? Believe it or not, I'll go and tell the dean right now that Yi Fengyu was kidnapped by your Dark Forces by bribing the Hall of Assassins." She was so angry that she didn't know what to say. The fear of almost losing her life made her unable to control her rationality. "Pa!" A slap landed on Shangguan Lioli's face. Shangguan Lioli was sent flying and crashed into the wall. A trace of blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. The black-robed protector stood up and released his aura. He looked coldly at Shangguan Lioli and said, "If not for you, foolish woman, how could she know that Yi Fengyu's disappearance was related to you? An idiot who couldn't do anything right but was good at spoiling things. I really don't know why his lord wants to keep this woman alive. Just based on this kind of big-breasted brainless woman, did she dare to put herself in the position of a partner? She even dared to point fingers at him and act so arrogantly? If it wasn't for the fact that his lord wanted to keep her alive." Chapter 1071. Yiqing Luo's body suddenly tensed up. Yi Fengyu's kidnapping was indeed related to Shangguan Luli. Shangguan Luli? Ha? Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with a chilly intent. Shangguan Luli, who was slapped by the black robe protector, became more obedient. Suddenly she felt a chill down her spine. It was as if a pair of venomous snake eyes were staring at her. It made her feel like the cold December wind, seeping into her heart from her pores. She half knelt on the ground, her gaze subconsciously looked towards the outer hall. Yiqing Luo realized that she had overreacted and did not control her emotions well. Shangguan Luli sensed something. That black robe protector would definitely sense her presence. Xian? Yiqing Luo immediately restrained the chill in her eyes, grabbed Dmo Xian's arm and was about to leave. But Dmo Xian was the first to encircle her delicate body. His warm large palm gently caressed her tight back. Yiqing Luo's waist tightened, only feeling the cold wind brushing against her face. In the blink of an eye, she and Dmo Xian were already standing on the eaves of the room. The towering eaves just happened to cover their figures. The black robe protector and Shangguan Luli rushed out of the room at the same time, scanning the surroundings. Lord Protector, could it be? Shangguan Luli's heart was palpitating as she subconsciously touched her neck. Yiqing Luo had already confirmed that Yi Fengyu's kidnapping was related to her. When they were in the outer courtyard, Yiqing Luo did not kill her because there were too many people. If now, it was not impossible for him to sneak into her room and kill her without anyone noticing. Thinking of this, Shangguan Luli's eyes were filled with fear. Her body leaned towards the black robe protector. The black robe protector squinted his eyes, sizing up the surroundings. Releasing his perception, he did not sense any strange person. After a while, he said in a deep voice, "You only need to remember tomorrow's competition, kick the devil class out of the preliminary round, the rest of the things you don't need to worry." Shangguan Li's voice trembled. You want to leave? This life of yours is not that valuable." The black robe protector snorted disdainfully. "She will not give up her chance in the Heavenly Academy just to kill you. If Shangguan Lioli were to die in the dormitory now, everyone would think that it was Yiqing Luo who killed him. By then, Yiqing Luo would definitely be investigated by the headquarters and might even face the danger of being expelled from the academy. Yiqing Luo was an extremely intelligent young lady. It was impossible for her to kill Shangguan Lioli to vent her anger, and to gamble with her future. It was just as the Lord had said. Yiqing Luo would definitely choose to take part in the interclass competition. He wanted to take revenge on Shangguan Lioli during the competition. This was especially so after he won the championship. He would be able to fulfill the blood oath and destroy everything that belonged to Shangguan Lioli. This was the best revenge for Shangguan Lioli. Shangguan Lioli trembled. You don't understand that woman. When that woman goes crazy, she doesn't care about other people's opinions. Lord Protector, can you not leave tonight? Tomorrow? The black robe protector's hand was mercilessly pushed away. The black robe protector glanced at her coldly. If there's nothing important, don't release the black bird to summon us again. If it affects the Lord's plan, not only Yiqing Luo will kill you, before that, this protector will kill you personally. Shangguan Lioli was so scared that her face turned pale, not daring to say another word. Chapter 1072. On the roof, Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian exchanged glances. Let's go. Based on the current situation, there was obviously no need to continue watching. Shangguan Lioli didn't know where Yi Fengyu had been kidnapped to. Naturally, there was no way to follow Shangguan Lioli to locate his location. But there was an unexpected gain. The two of them left the roof silently and returned to the courtyard. They didn't realize that after they left, from another corner of the mansion, a tall figure slowly walked out. Under the moonlight, that blood-red robe seemed to be plated with a layer of fluorescence. Like a god descending to earth, handsome and elegant. That extraordinarily handsome but expressionless face had a slight change in expression. Zhu Wuxian retracted his gaze as his heart was unable to calm down. He didn't see wrongly. Earlier, Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes revealed a chilliness which seemed to come from hell. As though it was covered with frost, making one feel as though they were in an ice cellar. The powerful and majestic aura made even him fearful. Yiqing Luo? Was she really the Yiqing Luo that he knew? Independent courtyard. At the entrance of the courtyard stood two people who were dressed as Imperial Palace's disciples, guarding there. Whereas in the courtyard, those students who had long recovered were still bandaging their wounds, as they rested on the wooden mat. Long Yunzhan and Xiao Jin were also putting on an act, sending medicine to the students or bandaging their wounds. This was to prevent other elders or master spies from paying attention to their situation. Otherwise, devil classes students would be seriously injured and didn't even have the energy to stand up. Tomorrow they would be able to compete energetically and without any injuries. This would definitely arouse those people's suspicions and attention. If they made use of Supreme Mo's prestige, plus the Imperial Palace's people sending over precious medicinal pills. After a night of recuperation. Even if they were able to compete tomorrow, it wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. When Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian returned, they indeed saw a few sneaky figures not too far away. Among them there was an extremely familiar figure. Yun Xiang was actually in the dark, checking on devil class's situation. Yiqing Luo scoffed as she pretended not to see anything. The two of them entered the courtyard directly. Long Yunzhan and Xiao Jin put down the act in their hands as they welcomed them. Yiqing Luo took a look at the hall and walked over first. The others followed behind him. Shangguan Lioli and the Dark Faction's Law Protector just met. Yiqing Luo went straight to the point, as she succinctly narrated what she saw in Shangguan Lioli's room earlier. Hearing that, Long Yunzhan was silent for a moment, then he frowned and said, "Dark forces kidnapped Yi Fengyu and heavily injured the devil class. What exactly is their motive?" He just couldn't figure it out. If he only wanted to stop Yiqing Luo from participating in the competition. Now he could easily kill Shangguan Lioli and shift the blame to Yiqing Luo. But the Dark Force's intention was to let Shangguan Lioli and Devil Class be eliminated in the preliminary round? Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. King of Darkness's motive should be to force me to take part in the competition. Then when the blood vow is fulfilled, he will openly snatch away my profound heart jade. Kill Shangguan Lioli and frame her? Wouldn't this implicate the General Hospital? Once the General Hospital stepped in and locked her up, it would be extremely difficult for the Dark Forces to do anything to her. The target of the Dark Forces was her profound heart jade. If the King of Darkness wanted to undo the seal, other than her profound heart jade, he still needed her. Then wouldn't you? Long Yunzhan's eyes sunk slightly as his face revealed a worried expression. The Dark Forces' target was Yi Qing Luo's words. Tomorrow's competition would absolutely not be as simple as she imagined. The Dark Forces would definitely do something. Chapter 1073. Long Yunzhan was stunned as his azure blue eyes retracted without much emotion. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept across the both of them as she changed the topic. The Dark Forces' target is me, Xiao, you must be safe now. They could only wait for the Imperial Palace or the 3,000 peach blossoms to search for his whereabouts. As for the Dark Forces using him to threaten her, tomorrow there should be news. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes as she spoke calmly. You should at least rest for a while tomorrow. There's still a tough battle to fight. Long Yunzhan and Xiao Jin exchanged glances as they nodded slowly and returned to the courtyard. Yi Qing Luo looked at the man beside her as she gently placed her hand around his waist. Ah Xian, unless it's the last resort, it's best not to reveal your identity. When Diamo Xian heard that, a glint of joy flashed past his peach blossom eyes. His other hand held her hand tightly as he brought it to his lips and kissed it as he laughed softly. All right. His Lil Luo, had finally learnt to speak to him and learned to rely on him. If it was in the past, his Lil Luo, would have directly rejected him if it was not the last resort. Was he considered to have truly stepped into Lil Luo's heart? Diamo Xian suppressed the ecstasy in his heart as he tightened his embrace on the young lady as a warm kiss landed on her forehead. You should have a good rest too. No matter if it's finding Xiao Yu's whereabouts or tomorrow's competition, you need to worry about it. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes slightly as she found a comfortable spot in his embrace and leaned on it softly. If it was only her alone, her restless heart would probably not be able to calm down. Her entire mind would be filled with Yi Fengyu. She would think that the Dark Forces had harmed the Devil class's students. But at this moment, the man's elegant sandalwood scent lingered around her nose, making her feel at ease. It seemed like, with this man around, she didn't need to be afraid of anything. After a while, drowsiness struck and her eyelids felt heavy. She rubbed against Diamo Xian's chest as she fell into a deep sleep. Diamo Xian looked at the young lady in his arms as he carefully carried her up and walked towards the inner courtyard. Behind him, a black figure appeared soundlessly and followed respectfully. Lord Dizun, we have searched the entire West Continent, but we have not found the whereabouts of 8th young Master Yi. Diamo Xian's footsteps were light and slow, his voice was low. Continue to search, even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you must find little Yu. He wasn't worried that Yi Qing Luo would suddenly wake up and hear that Yi Fengyu had not been found. In order to let Yi Qing Luo sleep peacefully, he specially hit her sleeping acupoint. His little Luo heir had given him too much pressure. He lovingly gazed at the sleeping face of the girl in his arms and indifferently continued, the target of the Dark Forces is her. Little Yu must still be within the boundaries of the Western Continent. If the disciples of the Imperial Palace can't find her, it means that the people of the Dark Forces have set up a barrier to block the eyes of the Imperial Palace. Afeng was stunned. He heard Diamo Xian hesitating for a long time before he finally said word by word, send a secret message to little Ling, ask her to quickly head to the Western Continent and search for a place with a strong barrier. I want to know about little Yu's news before noon tomorrow. Afeng immediately raised his eyes and for the first time, he refuted Diamo Xian's request. Lord Diamo Xian must not do that. If Miss Ling knew about Miss Ye's existence, I'm afraid. Chapter 1074. Afeng pursed his lips and took a few steps back respectfully before disappearing into the night. Diamo Xian Huan held the young lady in his arms tightly as he walked straight into the bedroom. He gently placed Yi Qing Luo on the bed and pulled the blanket over to cover her up. He stood by the bed and gazed deeply at the person on the bed. His deep peach blossom eyes faintly floated with a strange glint. His Lil Luo, had finally relied on him wholeheartedly. He didn't want to disappoint Lil Luo, No matter what happened, he would do his best to protect Lil Luo. The next day, the preliminary round of the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition had officially begun. Various forces who wanted to invest or collaborate with the Heavenly Academy were already waiting at the various areas of the arena. There were also representatives from other large-scale academies who were waiting at their own areas. The entire Westlake Square was extremely lively. However, this time what the crowd was discussing wasn't which class would win or which student would be the most outstanding. What they were talking about was the incident of the attack on the Devil class last night. In front of various forces, representatives from various large academies and the teachers sent by the main courtyard, a class of students were beaten up to a serious injury. Although this was a humiliation to the Heavenly Academy, a humiliation that could not be washed away. But to the other forces, it was also a disgrace to them. It could be said that the person who attacked the Devil class didn't put them in his eyes at all. Especially over at the main courtyard, they got the news of the students being attacked. 3 elders from the main courtyard were sent over overnight to assist, vowing to bring the force who attacked the students to justice. Devil class's students are seriously injured. I'm afraid there's no way for them to participate in today's interclass competition. There's no point in participating or not participating. Devil class is the Heavenly Academy's waste class, they're all just a bunch of waste. Even if they participate, there's no suspense, what's the point? You can't say that, we have to have a dream, what if we meet a ghost? A tease made the various forces burst out laughing. These ridicules spread to the Heavenly Academy's side and the few elders and teachers' faces turned extremely ugly. Yun Xiang's face was steely green as he suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, "Principal, when Devil class wanted to participate in the interclass competition, we should have rejected them directly." Elder Yun He, who was at the side, immediately nodded his head in agreement. "Those trash in the Devil class, each and every one of them is worrisome. Yesterday I accompanied young Master Zhu to the back of the mountain and coincidentally bumped into those wastrels. They were chased by a dozen of low-level magical beasts and they were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves, attracting so much attention. What a disgrace to our Heavenly Academy." Exactly. Yesterday at the back of the mountain, young Master Zhu was so annoyed by the wailing and howling of this bunch of trash that he lost the mood to discuss with us. He went straight down the mountain and returned, another teacher said angrily. They were the masters and elders of the Heavenly Academy. They should be worshipped and envied. But this time, because of the Devil class, they had become the joke of others. This was the first time in their lives that they were not honored and rewarded for their status as elders and masters of the Heavenly Academy. On the other hand, it would become a joke. "That's enough, each of you stop talking." Yun Tian frowned and glanced at the few people who were complaining softly. "No matter what the Devil class is like, Devil class is still the Heavenly Academy's class. Don't let outsiders see it as a joke." Chapter 1075. The discussions in the various influential areas were still ongoing. At this moment, the sound of gongs could be heard. Students from all the major classes slowly walked out from the contestants' area in a grandiose manner. At the front were the students from High Profound Class 2 and High Profound Class 1. Because it was an interclass competition, all the students had their own uniform to distinguish their opponents. High Profound Class 2's uniform was a bamboo-colored outfit with the words High Profound Class 2 embroidered on the back. High Profound Class 1's uniform was a brown outfit with the words High Profound Class 1 embroidered on the back. Enthusiastic cheers and whistles sounded from various areas, welcoming the entrance of the High Profound Class students. Following that, 2 classes from Intermediate Profound Class appeared. Intermediate Profound Class 1's uniform was green. Intermediate Profound Class 2's uniform was gold, looking extremely energetic. The leader of Intermediate Profound Class 2 was Shangguan Lioli. She was dressed neatly today with an arrogant look on her face. Her line of sight collided with Lu Shuiyu. Unlike the past, she obediently averted her gaze. On the contrary, Shangguan Lioli provocatively raised her eyebrows, as if she was declaring war on Lu Shuiyu. This action was not subtle at all. The onlookers below immediately whistled and screamed in agreement. Before it even started, there were already such strong sparks from the collision. Today's interclass competition would definitely be exciting. Following that, the students from Low Profound Class 1 and 2 entered the arena. Seeing that everyone's gazes and attention were attracted by the students in these classes, no one bothered to talk about the Devil class anymore. The elders and masters finally revealed a warm smile on their faces. Seeing that the atmosphere was heated up enough, Yun Xiang then flew up under the dean's signal and with one leap he landed in the middle of the arena. Students from various classes stood around the arena. Yun Xiang glanced at them, circulated his profound qi and amplified his voice. Thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and watch the annual interclass competition of the Heavenly Academy. After the opening speech, Yun Xiang directly stated his purpose. In order to motivate all the students to do their best in this year's interclass competition, the dean specially invited the students from our Heavenly Academy's Class of Gods to come and watch. Class of Gods. Damn. They actually managed to invite students from the Class of Gods. It seems like the dean is extremely concerned about this interclass competition. The various forces began to discuss incessantly. Class of Gods. It was the most eye-catching class in the Heavenly Academy. The status of the students in this class was no lower than that of the elders and teachers. Even the dean had to be courteous to the students of the Class of Gods. He was the legend of the Heavenly Academy. Each and every one of these students was talented and possessed their own unique powers. For the students of the Heavenly Academy's Class of Gods, all the major forces wanted to pull them into their own camp. When he heard that the students from the Class of Gods would be coming over to take charge, he was stunned. All of them were extremely excited as they tried to think of ways to attract the attention of the students from the Class of Gods. Seeing the crowd's reaction, Yun Xiang smiled. The good mood that was swept away by the devil class instantly returned. He took a few steps back, raised his hand and applauded with a chuckle. Let us welcome the students of Class of Gods, our Heavenly Academy's #1 beauty, Zi Qianqian. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure dressed in snow-white clothes descended from the sky. Chapter 1076. So beautiful. No wonder she's the #1 beauty of the Heavenly Academy, it's too stunning. Breathtaking voices spread out from the surroundings. The men from various forces stared straight at the woman on the arena. That figure was as light as a rainbow as it slowly landed beside Yun Xiang. A long white dress made her look like a dream. Due to the exquisite makeup on her face, her beautiful, pure and moving face seemed a little cold. It made people want to get close but could not bear to blaspheme. She was as pure as a fairy. This woman. Compared to the #1 beauty of the Three Springs City, Yi Qingqian, she was many times more beautiful. She could be called the #1 beauty of the West Continent. Zi Qianqian's red lips curled up slightly, a trace of pride flashed past her eyes. I'm Zi Qianqian, a student of the Class of Gods. Today, under the order of the dean, I'm here to take charge of the position of the leader. Her clear and sweet voice made those infatuated men's minds ripple. Their eyeballs could not wait to stick on Zi Qianqian. While many female cultivators were livid and couldn't help but curse Vixen in jealousy. But they had to admit that this woman's appearance was peerless. It's my honor to be here today. I would like to thank the Dean and the Heavenly Academy for giving me this opportunity. Next, let me talk about the rules of challenging the leader. Zi Qianqian repeated the rules with a voice that sounded like silver bells. This interclass competition was almost the same as the previous year's competitions. First, from the preliminary round, semifinals, finals and grand finals, the class that won would be selected, which was the class that won the championship in the previous years. And for this year's competition, the Heavenly Academy had the Class of Gods to take charge of the leader. When the class that won the grand finals came out, they could choose whether to challenge the leader. If they chose to challenge the leader, then it would be a showdown between the class that won and the leader. If the leader won, then the leader would be the Class of Gods. If the leader won, then the leader would be the class that won. Of course, the class that won could also choose to refuse to challenge the leader. In this way, it would still be considered as the class that won the final victory. But the dean gave an extremely tempting condition. That was, if the class that won the championship challenged the overseeing chief and won, then they would be able to select 10 students from the class that won the championship to enter the Class of Gods and undergo special training that would last for a month. This was a great temptation to countless students. There were 300 to 400 people in the class that won the championship. Even if they made it to the end, 100 or so people would not be able to fight. There were at least 100 or 200 people who could challenge the overseeing chief, because Zi Qianqian was the only overseer. Even if Zi Qianqian was a student of the Class of Gods, how could 100 or 200 people not be able to challenge Zi Qianqian? After the rules were explained in detail, the students of the 6 classes were completely excited. Especially the students of High Profound Class 2, their eyes had already lit up. They had already started to discuss in private whether they should challenge the leader. Isn't that a student from the devil class? The devil class students are here. There was a sudden commotion in the crowd. He then heard someone shouting the 3 words, devil class. Everyone's gaze immediately followed the sound. Sure enough, he saw more than 60 students walking toward the contestants' area. More than 60 students, dressed in crimson uniforms, were extremely conspicuous. Especially on their right arm, there was a pattern of a cherry blossom that looked like a flame. And on the back of the uniform, there was only one word embroidered. Chapter 1077. Not knowing why, these youths who usually looked lethargic and listless. But today they seemed especially high-spirited. Their footsteps were light and their youthful faces were brimming with youthful and confident smiles. Their crimson-colored robes made them look extremely domineering. Those who originally wanted to open their mouths to mock when they heard that devil-class students had arrived, all shut their mouths. They looked at these students in astonishment. How could devil-class students have such an aura? Just as they were in shock. Suddenly, a student who was walking in the middle of the students let out a soft, ah. His calf instantly felt a sharp pain and his entire body fell forward. The devil-class students all lined up neatly and moved forward. With this fall, even the students in front were pushed forward a few steps. One by one. In a split second, the devil class, which was originally lined up neatly, fell all over the ground. Until the students at the back pushed Long Yunjian and the rest who were walking in front, and were supported in time, barely managed to stabilize the few of them. This fall caused the onlookers who were originally shocked, to burst into laughter. Haha. Trash class is trash class. To think I was so shocked just now, I really thought they had been reborn. I'm dying of laughter. A bunch of trash still want to make a fool of themselves on stage, they can't even walk properly, hurry back to their mother's womb and be born again. Tisk, don't say that. This bunch of trash have the guts to participate in the interclass competition. This kind of spirit and courage is still worth learning. This is called spirit and courage? They're simply idiots. All sorts of discussions were going on, causing the student who fell to turn red in the face. He lowered his head, his eyes were already red. So, sorry, I didn't do it on purpose? Long Yunjian asked in a deep voice. What happened? I don't know, something seemed to have hit my leg, I couldn't stand properly. The student lowered his head guiltily, stretching out his hand to roll up his trousers. Indeed, on his calf, there was a lump of greenish-purple bruise. Obviously, someone had purposely wanted to see devil class make a fool of themselves, and used a hidden weapon to attack them. Long Yunjian squinted his cold eyes, his vision followed the angle of the bruise and looked over. That direction was the direction of Intermediate Profound Class 2. The spectators in that direction were from other continents. Presumably, this hidden weapon should have been thrown over by Intermediate Profound Class 2. Long Yunjian lowered his eyes. Is it affected? The student immediately shook his head. No. Long Yunjian straightened up and returned to the front of the team. Assemble. The students quickly adjusted their positions and neatly followed behind Long Yunjian, walking to their positions. It was as if nothing had happened at all. On the contrary, I feel that this time, devil class might be able to get a good ranking. Suddenly, one of the spectators voiced out a different opinion from the rest. It immediately attracted the attention of others. The one who spoke was none other than the representative of the Yuchi family, the second head of the Yuchi family. He was also one of the survivors from the Ling King tomb. Second leader Yuchi, you didn't drink today? How could the devil class get a good ranking? From what I see, this devil class will be eliminated in the first round of the preliminary competition today. Don't forget, devil class has the world group's vice group leader, Yiqing Luo. Yuchi's second master said it word by word. Chapter 1078. Vice leader of the world group. They were no strangers to this mercenary group. After the battle in the Ling King's tomb, the world mercenary group had become completely famous. Yiqing Luo's name had also become the topic of discussion among various powerhouses. Yiqing Luo was in the devil class. That was true. He might be able to get a good ranking by relying on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo? It seems like I didn't see Yiqing Luo in devil class. Someone looked around, scanning all the devil class's students, but didn't see Yiqing Luo's figure at all. When the crowd heard this, they also started to look for Yiqing Luo. But he discovered that among the students in devil class, there was no sign of Yiqing Luo at all. Yiqing Luo was actually not around? Yiqing Luo actually didn't participate in the competition? Second leader Yuqi, this is a class competition, not an individual battle. Even if Yiqing Luo is really as powerful as what you said, that's her problem alone. Look at that group of trash who can't even walk properly. Even if there were 10 Yiqing Luos, there's no way to change the fact that their class is filled with trash. Also, the students from the devil class yesterday, all of them were severely injured. Yes. I was at the scene and personally saw them being carried back to their dormitories. I'm afraid that they're forcing themselves to participate in today's competition. TSK. I really don't know if these trash from devil class have something wrong with their brains, to force themselves to participate in the competition when they're seriously injured. I'm afraid this is the reason why Yiqing Luo doesn't dare to participate in the competition. Yiqing Luo doesn't have the face to take part in the competition. She doesn't even dare to appear. This is a wise choice. She's a young genius who's being talked about by all the big forces. She's the second overlord. If she loses here, won't she lose all her face? There were waves of sarcasm and ridicule. Second head Yuqi creased his brows as he shook his head in disbelief. Impossible? How could Yiqing Luo not be participating in the competition? It was because Yiqing Luo was going to take part in the competition that the Patriarch specially sent him over as Yuqi's representative. Otherwise, was there a need for him, the second in command, to come personally for a class competition? One had to know, Yiqing Luo had made a blood oath with Shangguan Liuli to win first place. If Yiqing Luo didn't participate in the competition, it was highly possible that the devil class would not even be able to enter the preliminary round, so how would they be able to win? And at this moment, Shangguan Liuli, who was standing at the front row of Intermediate Profound Class 2, was also sizing up devil class's side. After confirming that he didn't see Yiqing Luo's figure, his eyes revealed a complacent smile. The Lord Protector really did not lie to her. As expected, Yiqing Luo would not take part in the competition. Then, devil class would definitely not be able to advance to the preliminary round. Facing everyone's questioning gazes, the students of the devil class did not change their expressions, as though they were already used to everyone's colored gazes. Their eyes were resolute, their backs straight, and they stood ramrod straight. In their minds were the words that Yiqing Luo said to them before she left. She said, "The mission I'm giving you is to straighten your chests and take back your self-respect. Tell the world that you are not trash." She said, "I don't want to be spurned and despised by those people anymore. I don't want others to call you trash and humiliate you. Then this is a battle for your dignity." She said, "For your dignity, for the honor of the devil class, and also for me. I believe that all of you, after going through the torturous training and difficult obstacles, you who have always stood here strong, are the best." Chapter 1079. Dong, the preliminary round's gong rang. Devil class's students stood up straighter than before. Pairs of bright eyes were filled with hope and unwavering luster. They looked towards Yun Xiang's direction, watching as he announced the first round's rules. The corners of his lips carried a confident smile. No one took a step back, and no one was disheartened. They would wait for Yiqing Luo to return to bring Yi Fengyu back safely. The crowd's hearts trembled. Those who were obviously still childish and had the reputation of waste, had a spirited smile on their faces. No, to put it more accurately, that smile was hope. Time, rewinding back to 5 o'clock, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. All the students were dressed in the uniform which Yiqing Luo had long prepared, as they did their morning exercises in the courtyard. Yiqing Luo pointed out each student's shortcomings and bad habits, one by one, teaching them how to avoid it. Just as she was saying that, she saw something like a black fog, like an arrow leaving the bow, attacking speedily. Yiqing Luo's reaction was swift, as she pushed the students in front of her, and took a swift step backwards. But unexpectedly, that black fog seemed to have locked onto Yiqing Luo, as it charged towards her direction once again. Yiqing Luo then saw clearly that was a lump. A black fog which looked like a bird. Black bird. Yiqing Luo's mind suddenly surfaced the words which she overheard from Shangguan Liuli last night. This was the summoning item which the dark forces used, Black Bird. Yiqing Luo stopped her evasive footsteps, as she stretched out her hand towards that black bird-shaped fog. Indeed, that black bird landed in her palm. In a blink, it turned into a piece of white paper. Yiqing Luo opened it as she swept a glance at the contents as her expression sunk. "What's the matter?" Long Yunzhan noticed the change in Yiqing Luo's expression, as he walked over and took that letter. After taking a look, Long Yunzhan's icy cold eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. He frowned. You bring everyone to participate in the competition, I'll go. The dark forces have specially named me, they want me to go. Yi Qingluo's voice was calm, without any emotions. No way. Long Yunzhan directly rejected. I don't agree to let you go alone. What's going on? Xiao Jin asked when he saw that the two of them were in a deadlock. Yi Qingluo looked at him calmly. Xiao Yu is in the hands of the dark forces, let me go look for them now. No. Xiao Jin had the same opinion as Long Yunzhan. The dark forces are sinister and cunning. They are full of tricks. You can't go. This was obviously a trap set by the dark forces. You still have to bring everyone to participate in the interclass competition. If you go, what will happen to the devil class? Xiao Jin supported Yi Qingluo's shoulders with both hands. Tell me, where is Xiao Yu locked up? I'll go. Devil class has you guys, and I believe that even if I'm not around, you guys will still be able to successfully enter the semifinals. Yi Qingluo laughed softly. Moreover speaking, it's useless no matter which one of you goes. The dark forces' target is me. Xiao Jin and Long Yunzhan's faces were ashen as they exchanged glances. He did not want Yi Qingluo to take the risk, but he didn't know how to stop it. Xiao Jin scratched his head and looked around. Where's Dizun? Have any of you seen the Dizun? He left early in the morning. Perhaps the main courtyard needs him. Yi Qingluo woke up early in the morning and there was no sign of Dmo Xian beside her. Chapter 1080. I have no choice. Yi Qingluo knew that they were all concerned about her. However, the dark forces were using Yi Fengyu's life as a hostage. She had to compromise. Was this the reason why the dark forces kidnapped Yi Fengyu? Was it to force her to meet the dark forces alone so that she wouldn't be able to participate in the interclass competition? Last night, the Dark Protector had said that he wanted the Devil class to be eliminated in the preliminary round. What did they do to Shangguan Liuli this time? Yi Qingluo's slender brows creased slightly as she spoke in a serious tone. You don't have to worry about me. If there's really an accident, I have a way to protect my life. But you, during the competition, take note of Shangguan Liuli and the other students. Shangguan Liuli was not the only one who was attracted by the mysterious Yin Qi. There were also other students. In this other world, the strong were respected and strength was supreme. Every profound practitioner's thirst for power had already reached the point where they were willing to pay any price. Especially, the dark forces had long infiltrated the Heavenly Academy, turning the Heavenly Academy into a breeding ground for pure souls. Other than Shangguan Liuli, there must be many other students. In the end, they weren't able to change Yi Qingluo's mind and they knew that they had no way to stop her. She could only tell Dmo Xian about it after she saw him. Placing all their hopes on Dmo Xian, Yi Qingluo flipped over and leapt onto Shiju's back as Long Yunzhan called out to her. She looked back, her expression calm. However, in the depths of his eyes, there was a bottomless whirlpool. Long Yunzhan furrowed his brows and looked at her for a while before warning, no matter what happens, don't be impulsive. Right now, you can't be impulsive. During the competition period, students were not allowed to fight or kill each other in private. Just like the attack on the Devil class, if it wasn't for the fact that the dark forces had taken away all the corpses of the students from the Devil class, Devil class would then be disqualified from the competition because they had killed someone. Yi Fengyu was in the hands of the dark forces. His life was safe. But it was inevitable that he would be injured. If Yi Qingluo were to act rashly and hurt someone. I know. Yi Qingluo replied indifferently. In the most inconspicuous abandoned temple in the Western continent, behind the Buddha statue was a tunnel. At this moment, the Buddha statue seemed to be surrounded by a thin layer of transparent fluorescent light. This was the fluorescence of a barrier. At the bottom of the tunnel, a slender figure was hung on a wooden frame with her limbs spread wide open. His greenish-white uniform was extremely disheveled, and there were a few obvious bloodstains on it. There were also a few spots on his clothes that were stained with blood that had congealed and stuck to his body. The youth was in a sorry state. His breathing was extremely shallow, and his vision was gradually blurring. He could faintly hear the voices of two women talking. He felt it was familiar, but he couldn't focus on identifying it. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, he heard the sound of something tearing through the air. A barbed whip landed ruthlessly on his body. The piercing pain caused the youth to scream out in pain. He sucked in a breath of cold air and regained his consciousness. Amidst the cold sweat, he saw a slender figure standing in front of him. The figure was petite and wore a black cloak. Under the dim light of the dungeon, it was impossible to see the person's face clearly. "Does it hurt? Pain is the right thing to do." The woman's voice seemed to be filled with madness and intense resentment. The whip landed on his body again. Chapter 1081. Yi Fengyu groaned in pain as his ears buzzed incessantly. The woman's shrill screams pierced his brain. "Scream. Scream louder. Scream more miserably. When that good sister of yours comes over, let her enjoy your performance." The woman whipped Yi Fengyu's body again. In her agitation, the cloak on her head slid down. A beautiful face was revealed, but its features were twisted and hideous. Yi Fengyu's eyes widened. The pain in his body was no match for the pain and shock in his heart. He opened his mouth wide and shouted incredulously, Fourth sister?" This woman was none other than his fourth sister who had been missing for many days. Yi Qingling. Ever since Yi Qingling's profound jade heart was destroyed by Yi Qingluo and her meridians were broken, Yi Qingling was driven out of the Yi family in Three Springs City. He had never seen her again. It wasn't that Yi Fengyu didn't think of asking second brother to find the whereabouts of fourth sister. But second brother didn't say anything after hearing it. And he was just a child who wasn't pampered. He didn't have the ability to look for fourth sister. It's been a few months. He didn't expect to see his fourth sister again in such a situation. After Yi Qingling heard his flabbergasted tone, she laughed maniacally. "Did you think that I had my profound jade heart destroyed, my meridians broken, and I've already become a waste? After being chased out of the Yi family, I wouldn't be able to continue living? No. Fourth sister, of course I'm happy that you're alive, father and old ancestor will." Yi Fengyu hadn't finished his words when he was interrupted by Yi Qingling. "Shut up. Don't mention those two old guys in front of me. As long as I have enough ability, I will destroy the Yi family. Destroy Three Springs sect. Just like now, I will destroy you." Yi Fengyu's eyes widened as the luster gradually dimmed. Obviously, the current Yi Qingling was already possessed. She had been completely engulfed by hatred. Right now, she only had one goal in her mind, and that was revenge. Yi Fengyu knew that no matter what he said, it would be in vain. The most important thing now was to think of a way to leave this place, or to stop his sister from coming here. Yi Qingling's hatred towards her sister had reached a state of madness. He could not let his sister fall into danger because of him. Following that, no matter how hard Yi Qingling's whip lashed, how ruthless, his body was in so much pain that he felt like he was going to suffocate in the next second. Yi Fengyu didn't make another sound. He had bitten his lower lip, and the sweet blood was mixed in his mouth. "Sure. Let's see how long you can be stubborn for." Yi Qingling roared. The target of the whip did not make a single sound. To Yi Qingling there was no spiritual pleasure at all. What she wanted to see, it was Yi Fengyu's fearful expression, and Yi Fengyu's unceasing begging for mercy. She wanted Yi Qingluo to witness with her own eyes how her beloved brother was tormented by her, living a life worse than death. Yi Qingling's eyes were filled with madness. The wantonly black aura in his eyes seemed to want to devour her. But she was totally unaware of it. She soaked the long whip in the salt water and immediately pulled it out. The splashing salt water dripped onto Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu sucked in a breath of cold air and restrained himself for a long time before he cried out. Chapter 1082. Endure it. I'd like to see how long you can endure. Yi Qingling laughed crazily. Her facial features were hideous, extremely terrifying. Ling. An indifferent and sweet voice came from the darkness of the dungeon. Yi Fengyu seemed to see the entrance of the tunnel. A slender figure stood against the light. He couldn't see clearly, only heard the voice again. "Don't play him to death. If he dies, there will be no tool to restrain Yi Qingluo." Yi Qingling loosened her fingers and gradually came back to her senses. She took a few steps back and smiled at the person behind her. "Fortunately, Sister Protector reminded me. I will pay attention." Out of nowhere, Yi Qingling fished out a sharp dagger and pressed it against his face. "I can't kill you, but I didn't say I can't make you wish you were dead." She laughed a few times and gently moved the dagger. The sharp dagger grazed his skin. Immediately, a thin piece of skin was cut off. Blood gushed out and soaked the dagger. Yi Fengyu was in so much pain that he sucked in cold air, breathing heavily. Yi Qingling laughed crazily. The black gas in her pupils reflected the blood on his body. She licked her red lips. He raised his dagger again and slashed at Yi Fengyu's body. I want to peel off your skin layer by layer, let Yi Luo see brother dressed in blood. The words stopped at the tip of his tongue. That sinister smile froze on his face for a moment. Ling-er? The person standing at the entrance of the tunnel frowned and called out in a low voice. But there was no response from Yi Qingling. She immediately stood up and walked quickly towards her brother. Her whole person was stunned on the spot. Only to see, a red figure stood between Yi Qingling and Yi Fengyu. That crimson-red dress, under the dim light of the fire, looked like rippling blood. It was extremely glaring, like a bloodthirsty azura from hell, stepping on blood light. That beautiful face that could topple a city was expressionless. Her long and narrow eyes were like an iceberg, frosted over. Just staring at her lightly made her feel like she was frozen, unable to move. Yi Luo? The person in front of her was Yi Luo? When did she come in? Yi Qingling was also dumbfounded. Sister Protector, aren't you guarding the entrance? How did she? That person shook his head, also extremely terrified. Now, there was actually someone who had entered the tunnel right under her nose. However, she was completely unaware of it. Yi Luo. How much had she grown? Too scary, Yi Luo's long and narrow eyes were suffused with a cold glint. She didn't pay attention to the two of them. Instead, she turned around and looked at Yi Fengyu, who was covered in blood and had been tortured to the point that he didn't even look human. The whirlpools in her eyes suddenly became like a tornado. She raised her finger, took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Her fingers quickly knocked on his body a few times. Xiaoyu, don't be afraid. Big sister is here. Her voice was warm and sweet. It was as gentle as a warm breeze, entering Yi Fengyu's heart. He wasn't sure if it was the effect of the medicine or Yi Luo's arrival. Yi Fengyu only felt that the pain in his body instantly disappeared wherever the warm current passed through. His consciousness had also become much clearer. When he opened his eyes, he saw the smiling face in front of him. She smiled, and her relief was mixed with comfort. Yi Fengyu nodded, the luster in his eyes was firm. Chapter 1083. Yi Luo, you actually came. Yi Qingling quickly returned to the woman's back, looking at Yi Luo with fear and excitement. She had not expected that Yi Luo would actually give up on the interclass competition, which was a matter of life and death for her brother Fengyu, even though she knew it was a trap. What a deep sibling relationship. Unfortunately, Yi Luo's sibling relationship was deep. In her eyes, it would only remind her of the time when Yi Luo turned her into a cripple without any scruples. The black gas in Yi Qingling's eyes became more and more intense. The hatred in her heart had been completely swallowed by the profound yin qi. Yi Luo naturally noticed this point, but she didn't take it to heart. Whether Yi Qingling was going to become food for the profound yin qi or not, today Yi Qingling must die here. You touched my brother, I naturally have to come and collect your corpse. Yi Luo slowly turned around and stared at the two women in black robes in front of her. Her pink lips raised slightly, revealing a bloodthirsty sneer, full of murderous intent. You. Yi Qingling was frightened by that smile, trembling and stuttering. Want to kill us? You don't have this ability. Guardian sister, let's do it. Guardian sister? Yi Luo raised her eyebrows, her cold smile bloomed like a poppy. The terrifying storm in her eyes seemed to be sucking people into her vortex. Not only Yi Qingling's throat tightened. That woman also couldn't stop trembling at this time. Yi Luo's gaze was filled with ridicule as she slowly walked towards them. With every step she took, the aura on her body was released. The violent and majestic energy made her blood-red dress flutter. Her long hair bared and brandished her claws. Yi Qingqian, you hate the Yi family so much that you even want to abandon your own name? Yi Luo laughed out lowly. That burst after burst of laughter, like a cold hand, ruthlessly piercing one's heart. That woman in a cloak, other than Yi Qingqian, who else could it be? Yi Luo sneered, her eyes were filled with murderous intent, her palm moved and the glower flame fan was already in her hands. She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with these two. Yi Qingling had completely touched her reverse scale. She couldn't bear to see her younger brother get hurt. How dare Yi Qingling hurt him like this? And the students of the devil class, her companions. Did Yi Qingling really think that with Yi Qingqian and the dark forces as her backing, she could be unbridled? The rage in Yi Luo's eyes surged and her profound qi suddenly broke out of her body. The powerful energy seemed to have solidified the surrounding air. The unfurled devouring flame fan rotated in the center of his palm. Like a ball of raging flames, it suddenly blossomed and burned. It turned into a fire dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws as it charged towards the two of them. Yi Fengyu's injuries wouldn't last long. Moreover, this was the territory of the Dark World. He had to end the battle quickly. Yi Qingqian widened her beautiful eyes in shock. Under this powerful aura, they didn't even have the strength to move. Seeing that the fire dragon was about to attack, Yi Qingqian's eyes sunk as she pursed her lips tightly. She mustered all her strength and flipped her palm. A cloud of black mist shot out from the palm of his hand. That mist turned into the shape of a black bird as it suddenly shot up to the horizon. More than a dozen black-robed Dharma protectors of the dark forces rushed out from all directions of the tunnel. Without a second word, they directly attacked towards Yi Qingluo's direction. Chapter 1084. Yi Qingluo's eyes turned cold as her lips curled into a faint smile. Long and narrow eyes, curved eyebrows. Like she was smiling. But the emotions on that face made one's heart tremble inexplicably. More than 10 black-robed protectors swarmed over. A few streaks of black chi flashed past. The fire dragon created by Yi Qingluo's feather fan was completely defeated. The flames were consumed in mid-air. Following that, those black-robed protectors burst out a dense profound yin chi. Their entire bodies seemed to be shrouded in black smoke. Sister. Yi Fengyu was stunned as he looked at these black smoke-curling people in front of him in astonishment. These people? Were they still human? Yi Qingluo threw the glower flame fan in her hand into mid-air. Just as the glower flame fan was about to fall, her feet stepped on the ground and her figure was light as she leapt into mid-air. She stretched out her hand and firmly held the fan handle. At the same time, when that feather fan opened up, a terrifying aura swept out, accompanied by a sharp piercing explosion. An enchanting red light shot out from that open glower flame fan. Bang, bang, bang. A few explosions rang through the air and soon after, the black smoke-like gas was covered by the red light. Ah! A few screams were heard as those black-robed protectors who attacked in mid-air were injured by this burst of chi. They directly fell from mid-air and fell to the ground. There were a few who reacted quickly and avoided that burst of chi at the same time when the black chi was defeated. Yi Qingluo did not give them any breathing space. A cold glint flashed in her eyes as her figure quickly spread out. Her footwork was strange. But in the blink of an eye, she had already moved close to the back of one of the black-robed protectors. The glower flame fan in her hand flashed a red light. Without a sound, it cut that black-robed protector's neck. Fresh blood gushed out. Yi Qingluo's figure, like a ghost, disappeared from everyone's line of sight. The black-robed protectors immediately focused and keenly sensed Yi Qingluo's existence. They couldn't believe it. Yi Qingluo's speed was actually so fast. Even they could not catch any traces of Yi Qingluo's figure. Didn't the Saint Law say that Yi Qingluo was just a young girl who had just advanced to Earth Profound 4th grade? How could he possess such godly speed? Be careful. This slut has a set of footwork that no one can break. Yi Qingqian immediately warned. As he spoke, he heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Not far from the black-robed protector whose neck had been slit by Yi Qingluo, another black-robed protector had also fallen to the ground without any signs of life. However, none of them had sensed Yi Qingluo's presence. It was as if Yi Qingluo had already turned invisible, as though she was one with the air. The dozen or so black-robed protectors were shocked. Damn it. Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? Unbreakable footwork? If we can't find her, how can we subdue her? The few black-robed guardians' hearts were palpitating with fear, deeply afraid that Yi Qingluo would appear behind them and silently take away their lives, so they couldn't help but grumble. Yi Qingqian remained silent for a moment and suddenly thought of something. Her gaze was like a sharp blade as she shot straight towards Yi Fengyu who was tied to the rack. Catch Yi Fengyu. As long as Yi Fengyu is in our hands, she will have to obediently show herself. A way to restrain Yi Qingluo's strange footwork. The Saint Law didn't tell her. Now they could only make use of Yi Fengyu to force Yi Qingluo to show herself. Otherwise, let Yi Qingluo use this method to sneak and attack. Chapter 1085. When the few black-robed guardians heard that, they immediately reacted. The few of them flew swiftly towards the direction of the shelf. One of them opened his fingers and turned it into an eagle's claw, heading straight for Yi Fengyu's head. But unexpectedly, that young man who was originally tied tightly on the shelf was covered in blood and was in a semi-conscious state. He suddenly opened his eyes. That pair of clear eyes, there wasn't a hint of haziness in them. There was only a biting cold murderous intent. Yi Fengyu's limbs swiftly pulled out his hands from the long untied iron chain. His palm moved and profound chi broke out of his body. He directly slapped the face of the defenseless black-robed protector, who was at the forefront of the charge. Profound chi exploded downwards. The black-robed protector was immediately sent flying by the explosion. His entire head exploded. Yi Fengyu's breathing was hurried as he withdrew his hand, trembling non-stop. After this action, he was shocked to realize that his entire body was trembling because of fear. The first time he killed someone. The first time he killed someone in such a brutal way. To a young man whose temperament was still immature, it indeed made him panic. But Yi Fengyu didn't feel any regret. Yi Qingluo knew that it was dangerous, but she resolutely chose to come to the Dark Forces territory to save him. He absolutely could not let himself become Yi Qingluo's burden. After killing one person, Yi Fengyu had not regained his senses. The other black-robed guardians charged towards Yi Fengyu with an extremely ugly expression. Just at this moment, a sweet voice was heard, neither fast nor slow, word by word. That voice was filled with an enchanting charm, but it made one shiver. Ah! A panicked cry was heard, accompanied by Yi Qingluo's bell-like laughter. Those few black-robed guardians' actions immediately stiffened. Guardian who? The black-robed guardian shouted anxiously, Yi Qingluo, what are you trying to do? If you dare to hurt Guardian who, your little life will not be guaranteed. The few stiff black-robed guardians turned their heads in unison. They saw a blazing figure standing against the light at the entrance of the tunnel. Her 5 fingers locked onto Yi Qingqian's neck. A cold and bloodthirsty sneer hung on her face. Protector who? Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes as she took a look at the pale-faced young lady. You're indeed bewitching, but what shocked me is that you've only joined the Dark Forces for such a short period of time and you actually have so many trusted aides who are willing to be used by you. Yi Qingluo guessed that Yi Qingjian should have joined the Dark Forces, becoming a guardian or elder of the Dark Forces. He just didn't expect it. Not only had Yi Qingqian become a guardian, it seemed like she had absolute prestige in front of the other guardians. Yi Qingluo, you dare to touch me, try and see. Yi Qingqian's face was pale as she spoke harshly. Yi Qingluo raised her brows and laughed lowly. I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine. Didn't you want to use Xiaoyu to threaten me? So, I will use you to threaten the Dark Forces. Yi Qingqian's influence on the Dark Forces was so huge, which was something which Yi Qingluo had not expected. Since she had detected this, Yi Qingluo would naturally make use of it. She curled her lips and glanced at something out of the corner of her eyes. Then he nodded his head in a barely audible manner. Yi Qingqian was the closest and noticed Yi Qingluo's little action. Her expression suddenly turned serious. She shouted at those black-robed protectors who were looking at her in fear, Quick! Stop Yi Fengyu. You cannot let him leave. Chapter 1086. Yi Qingqian had just opened her mouth. A huge leopard with shiny black fur was behind them, as fast as lightning as it sped towards the entrance of the underground tunnel. On top of that leopard sat a young man who was covered in blood. Enchantment. Quickly close the enchantment. Yi Qingqian's eyes were scarlet red as she commanded sternly. She knew very well that once Yi Fengyu, who was a threat to Yi Qingluo, escaped the dungeon, they had no tools to restrict Yi Qingluo. If Yi Qingluo summoned a divine dragon or a sacred beast for protection, they had no way to leave the underground tunnel alive. The situation that was supposed to be a sure win would be reversed. She was too careless, too overconfident. She had forgotten to close the enchantment after those black-robed guardians entered the underground tunnel. Yi Qingluo's fingers suddenly clenched tightly, causing Yi Qingqian to suffocate, unable to make a single sound. Hearing Yi Qingqian's voice stopped abruptly. These black-robed guardians' attention was slightly diverted towards Yi Qingqian. To them, protecting Yi Qingqian was the most important thing. If anything happened to Yi Qingqian, none of them could escape. It was this moment of distraction. Shiju had already brought Yi Fengyu and escaped the moment the enchantment closed. Stupid idiot. Yi Qingqian was so angry that her entire body was trembling. Her hoarse throat spat out 2 words with difficulty. but the strength of the grip on her neck made her unable to speak at all. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes, gazing at Yiqing Qian, whose face was flushed red from holding her breath, her beautiful eyes filled with hatred and viciousness. Her lips curled into a cold arc. Yiqing Qian, now? Let's calculate. How should I help Xiaoyu to get back the injuries he had suffered? Yiqing Qian's eyes were filled with fear. She wanted to struggle, but she couldn't muster up any strength. Her eyes widened as she refused to admit defeat. Yiqing Luo, Yi Fengyu's injuries were all caused by you. And devil class. Those useless things, it's all because of you that they suffered such treatment. Yiqing Luo's gaze was as cold as ice, her smile froze. Her slender fingers mercilessly pinched hard. The sudden strength made Yiqing Qian's throat tighten as she coughed violently. Not long after, that delicate face gradually flushed red and turned purple. Protector Hu. Yiqing Luo. You'd better release Guardian Hu immediately. Otherwise, don't even think of leaving this place alive. The expressions of the other black-robed protectors changed drastically, and they were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Yiqing Luo, on the other hand, stopped increasing her strength as she slowly raised her eyes and gazed at those restless black-robed guardians as her lips curled into a sweet smile. Don't tell me that if I let her go, I will be able to leave here alive. Hearing this, the black-robed protector was overjoyed and immediately nodded, yes. As long as you release Guardian Hu, you can leave this place. You think I'm naive? Yiqing Luo's smile became even more enchanting. Her slender fingers gently caressed the neck of Yiqing Qian, who was on the verge of fainting. If I let her go, I really won't be able to leave. What do you want? The black-robed protector looked nervously at the still-breathing Yiqing Qian and softened his tone to discuss the deal with her. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she felt increasingly curious. What capabilities did Yiqing Qian have? In a short period of time, he had gained such a high position in the Dark Forces. The Dark Organization did not limit the number of Guardian Elders. Chapter 1087. Among those Guardians or Elders, everyone had the same status. Then, how could Yiqing Qian make so many Guardians so nervous? Yiqing Luo pondered for a moment and slowly dragged the suffocating and limp Yiqing Qian directly towards the entrance of the tunnel. She curled her lips and said coldly, "Open the enchantment." The black-robed protectors looked at each other, then at each other. But no one moved an inch. Yiqing Luo laughed. "You don't even dare to open the enchantment. How can you talk about letting me go? You people from the Dark Forces really can't believe what you say." After that, she shook her head helplessly. "Then, before I die, I will torture her to death first." "No. Let's open the enchantment. Let's open." The black-robed guardian immediately opened his mouth to stop her. One of the black-robed guardians immediately headed towards the direction of the entrance. From time to time, he turned his head and looked at Yiqing Luo, paying attention to whether she was playing any tricks. The black-robed guardian had just walked to the entrance when Yiqing Ling, who was shivering at the side, suddenly shouted, "Don't open the enchantment. If she leaves the tunnel, all of us will die." The black-robed guardian paused and looked at Yiqing Ling, his voice hoarse. "Nothing must happen to Guardian Hu. Without her, there's still me, isn't it? I can be the Guardian Hu. Just by sacrificing herself, she can subdue Yiqing Luo. Then she can complete the task which his lordship has entrusted to her." Yiqing Ling pursed her red lips tightly. She didn't want to let Yiqing Luo go. She wanted to see Yiqing Luo walking towards death. How could she be willing to let Yiqing Luo leave so easily? Even if Yiqing Qian died, so what? She had already joined the Dark Forces. Why not replace Yiqing Qian to become the second Guardian Hu? Moreover, do you think Yiqing Luo, this little slut, will really comply with your deal? Don't forget, none of you can break that strange footwork of hers. Even my sister, she can't see through Yiqing Luo's footwork. Moreover, once you really open the enchantment, she will definitely kill my sister directly and then use her footwork to leave the tunnel. Even if you want to chase after her, I'm afraid you don't have this ability." Yiqing Ling's words were extremely reasonable. The black-robed protector also began to hesitate. Yiqing Jian, who had not completely fainted, felt a chill in her heart. She didn't expect that her younger sister would actually want to replace her current position. It was rare for her to have a close sisterly relationship. However, he didn't expect that this so-called deep love was just mutual exploitation. Yiqing Luo seemed to have sensed Yiqing Qian's self-deprecation. She lowered her eyes, which were deep and dark and contained a terrifying storm. She stared at Yi Qingqian for a long while before her lips curled up in disdain and her voice was cold. People like you never know how to give your heart to others, so how can you talk about true feelings? Her voice paused for a moment before she continued. People like you will never be able to have true feelings. Yi Qingqian's breathing gradually slowed down as her complexion turned from purplish-green back to pale white. She panted heavily as her beautiful eyes stared venomously at Yi Qingluo, saying word by word, "If you have the ability, kill me now. To be able to drag you along with me before I go to hell, I can die without regrets." Since when did eldest sister have such guts? Yi Qingluo cried out in shock as she clicked her tongue and couldn't stop praising. Eldest sister has such backbone. If I don't fulfill eldest sister's wish, wouldn't that be disrespecting eldest sister? Chapter 1088. She chuckled, her eyes curved. What fourth sister did to little you earlier, I can use it. Her fingertips moved. A sharp dagger was drawn under the fan handle. Her pink lips curved slightly, the cold luster in her eyes seemed to be able to absorb everything in the world. The dagger moved lightly, grazing the skin on Yi Qingqian's neck. A thin layer of skin was directly peeled off. Yi Qingqian cried out in pain, fresh blood gushed out. Fourth sister wants little you to taste the pain of peeling off his skin, then? I will let eldest sister taste this pain first. Yi Qingluo smiled charmingly. The expression on her face was calm and composed, as if peeling off her skin and pulling out her tendons was a normal thing. Yi Qingqian kept howling in pain. The pain of her flesh being peeled off was simply unbearable. She struggled, trying to break free from Yi Qingluo's torture. But the moment she moved, her body was grazed by the dagger, leaving streaks of blood marks. Finally, Yi Qingqian could not bear the pain. Tears rolled down from the corner of her eyes, her voice was hoarse and trembling. Open the enchantment, open the enchantment. Yi Qingluo flipped her palm. The bloody dagger became clean in an instant, shining with a dazzling luster. The dagger was kept back into the glower flame fan. She smiled, her eyes calm. You should have been obedient. Why are you so stubborn to suffer such torture? Those who don't know would think you like to suffer such treatment. Yi Qingqian was trembling with anger. That black-robed protector walked to the entrance of the tunnel, listened to the command and was about to open the enchantment. At the same time, Yi Qingluo's eyes flashed a gloomy sneer. In her heart, she had already silently recited the teleportation chant, ready to bring Yi Qingqian out of the enchantment. As long as she broke through this enchantment, the dark forces would not be able to trap her. Suddenly, the entire tunnel, the wind and clouds surged, the weather changed. A hurricane rose in the tunnel. The vast and majestic aura caused the entire tunnel to emit a rumbling sound that shook the mountains and the earth. Yi Qingluo suddenly felt an invisible pressure, making her somewhat breathless. Her eyes sunk, an ominous premonition surged from the bottom of her heart. Looking down, she saw Yi Qingqian who was being dragged by her. A strange sneer appeared on the corner of her mouth. Her beautiful eyes were clear and blood-red. He laughed savagely and savagely. Your time has come. Yi Qingluo had yet to react. She could only feel a surge of profound qi coming straight at her face. That strong imposing manner made even Yi Qingluo panicky. The last incantation of teleportation just happened to be spat out silently. Her figure flashed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, when she wanted to forcefully bring Yi Qingjian away, she was restrained by an invisible force. Yi Qingluo could only give up. When her figure appeared and stood in a corner of the tunnel, she raised her eyes and looked over. She saw that the place where she was standing just now had a huge crater. If she had dodged in time just now, she was afraid that now the one who would be smashed to pieces would be her. Who could it be? It actually possessed such great power. Even from Dmo Shen's body she had never sensed such powerful energy. Lord Saint Technique. A few black-robed protectors respectfully called out in unison, then knelt down in the direction of the tunnel entrance. Saint Technique? One of the four great Saint Techniques under the King of Darkness? Yi Qingluo frowned, followed their line of sight vigilantly and looked over. She saw a tall figure standing at the entrance of the tunnel. Chapter 1089. A black cloak covered his entire body. The black brocade clothes under the cloak were of high quality and were embroidered with strange totems with golden threads. The pair of eyes under the cloak were as cold as a poisonous snake, revealing an evil chill. Such a person, just by looking at his appearance, one could tell that he was not someone to be trifled with. A bunch of trash. An indifferent voice without any emotion. The holy technique's gaze swept past and saw the bodies of those black-robed protectors exploded. Instantly the entire tunnel was filled with flesh and blood. A strong smell of blood filled the air. Yiqing Luo's brows tightened. The tunnel was too narrow and she had tried her best to avoid the splattered flesh and blood. But there was still a small amount of flesh and blood that landed on her. Her brows tightened even more as she stared at that person vigilantly. This holy technique. It was different from the one she met outside the Ling Ling King's tomb. This holy technique was obviously crueler, more arrogant and more arrogant. He was extremely confident in himself. Take his act of directly killing these black-robed protectors as an example. It was enough to prove his confidence in himself. He was declaring war on Yiqing Luo. He didn't need these useless people who dragged him down to help. He alone was enough to deal with her. The dark forces were well aware of some of her abilities, such as the divine dragon and the white tiger. And this holy technique, knowing that she had the protection of the divine dragon and white tiger, was still so confident. Then there were only two answers. First, he didn't get the news from the dark forces and didn't know that she had the divine dragon and white tiger, so he dared to be so arrogant. Second, his ability was so strong that he didn't fear the existence of the divine dragon and white tiger. The current situation was afraid that it was the second answer. The relationship between the holy technique and Yiqing Qian was obviously not ordinary. If Yiqing Qian was around, it was impossible that the holy technique didn't know anything about her. Just when Yiqing Luo was extremely vigilant, the holy technique lowered his eyes and stared at the woman in his arms after killing the other black-robed protectors. Does it hurt? Yiqing Qian was drowsy and her beautiful eyes looked at the man who was hugging her as her lips curled into a relaxed smile. Yes. The Saint Law's gaze turned cold as his line of sight fell upon Yiqing Ling, who was curled up in the corner and retching incessantly. Yiqing Ling was stunned by his gaze and her delicate body trembled as she looked at the holy technique. You take care of her. His ice-cold voice carried a chilling aura. If there's even the slightest mistake, this holy technique will make you wish you were dead. Yiqing Ling shuddered as she walked towards them with weak legs. The minute they got close, the holy technique had already pressed Yiqing Qian's entire body onto her. Yiqing Ling barely managed to stabilize her body and carefully hugged Yiqing Qian as she half knelt on the ground. She placed Yiqing Qian on her body before she dared to look at the holy technique. Give her medicine. Saying that, he threw down a medicine bottle and directly walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Ling trembled as she clutched the bottle tightly. Looking at Yiqing Qian, who was lying on her lap, her face was filled with fear. She had been with the dark forces for almost 2 months. Naturally, he knew the status of the 4 great saint techniques in the dark forces. She had never expected this. His sister actually had such a close relationship with the holy technique. Just now when the holy technique looked at her, his gaze was cold and bone-chilling. It seemed that as long as he moved his eyelashes slightly, he could take away her life. Chapter 1090. Yiqing Qian gave a light harumph and didn't answer her question. Yiqing Ling was so scared that she started crying. Sister, I'm sorry. I was wrong just now. I was blinded by greed because I wanted to live on. Seeing that Yiqing Qian was still ignoring her, Yiqing Ling felt uneasy. Big sister, can you forgive me? I know I'm heartless and unscrupulous. I've forgotten my sister's kindness to me. She unscrewed the bottle and as she applied medicine for Yiqing Qian, she sobbed softly. It was Big Sister who gave Linger a second life. It was Big Sister who gave Linger a chance to live. Even if Linger were to go through fire and water for Big Sister, I would never be able to repay Big Sister's kindness. The cold ointment stopped the pain in his body. Yiqing Qian's consciousness had gradually recovered by more than half. She took a glance at the crying Yiqing Ling and hid away the disgust and ridicule in her eyes. Alright, I know your character very well. I hope you can remember what you have said. If there is a next time, don't blame me for not caring about our sisterly relationship. Yiqing Ling said lightly. Yiqing Ling's eyes lit up and she nodded happily. There will never be a next time. Initially, she thought that Yiqing Qian's position in the dark forces was based on her own ability. Thus, the idea of replacing him sprouted in his mind. But now, Yiqing Ling completely understood. The reason why the other guardians were so concerned about her was not because her life was more important than theirs. Instead, Yiqing Qian belonged to the sacred technique. Yi Qingjian didn't pay any more attention to Yi Qingling and immediately fixed her beautiful eyes in the direction of the holy technique, her eyes flowing with complacency and ruthlessness. As long as the holy wolf didn't abandon her, Yi Qingluo would definitely die today. You injured guardian who? Wolf Saint Technique's gaze fell onto Yi Qingluo, his gaze icy cold. Yi Qingluo was secretly speculating on the relationship between this holy technique and Yi Qingqian. This holy technique didn't seem to be because of the King of Darkness's mission, but for Yi Qingqian. Could it be that the kidnapping of Yi Fengyu and the attack on the devil class had nothing to do with the King of Darkness? But because of Yi Qingqian's request? That was also a possibility. Because what Yi Qingqian wanted to do the most? He would completely destroy her. He had destroyed everything for her and made her wish she was dead. Losing the devil class competition, and seeing the little brother that he cared about die in front of his own eyes. This was definitely a heavy blow to her. Yi Qingqian had this idea? You're smart but too smart. The wolf sacred technique walked toward her slowly. Every step he took brought along a majestic and powerful wave of air. It forced Yi Qingluo to take a step back. Protector who is my partner. Since you hurt my woman, you should pay the price. I'm sure you know the rules. Protector Lang smiled coldly. Looking at Yi Qingluo's flustered look, he couldn't help but laughed. Yi Qingluo probed, "Are you here on King of Darkness's orders, or to kill me to avenge her? Trying to get information out of me?" Wolf Saint Technique sneered as he closed in on Yi Qingluo. He then bent over slightly, looking down at Yi Qingluo, who was unable to escape because of his strong qi. But his next sentence still answered Yi Qingluo's question. Killing you not only is it to avenge Guardian Hu, it is also to complete his lord's orders. You're lying. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes, trying her best to ignore the extreme cold intent emitting from Wolf Saint Technique, restraining the trembling in her voice. Now she was almost completely sure. Wolf Saint Technique would definitely come. Chapter 1091. If by now Yi Qingluo still couldn't tell the relationship between Wolf Saint Dharma and Yi Qingqian, then her brain must have been really messed up. She had underestimated Yi Qingqian's charm. But Yi Qingqian should have her own skills towards men. Otherwise how would Yi Qingqian be able to quickly hook up with Lung Fengying after abandoning Lung Fenghua? Even if she and Lung Fengying were in a mutually beneficial relationship. But to be able to make Lung Fengying cooperate with her, that was Yi Qingqian's ability. She had not expected that after arriving at the Dark Forces, Yi Qingqian could still use her charm to hook up with Wolf Saint Dharma. No wonder those black-robed guardians were so worried that Yi Qingqian would be killed by her. If Yi Qingqian were to die, they would definitely suffer Wolf Saint Dharma's wrath. How can you tell that this Saint Dharma is lying? Wolf Saint Dharma's eyebrows curved in interest, as though he was interested in Yi Qingluo's words. This feeling to Yi Qingluo was extremely disgusting. Like he was teasing a pet. Yi Qingluo pursed her lips as her vision was fixed on Yi Qingqian, surveying the surroundings, searching for a chance to leave. While replying to him, she tried to delay the time. If I die, King of Darkness's plan will come to nothing. She was the most important chess piece in King of Darkness's plan. If she died, even if he obtained the profound jade heart in her body, probably it wouldn't be of much use. So, King of Darkness will not let you kill me. This was Yi Qingluo's judgment. Her life to King of Darkness still had some value. If Wolf Saint Dharma really killed her, then it would spoil King of Darkness's plan. Or could it be Wolf Saint Dharma was willing to sacrifice everything for Yi Qingqian? Are you threatening this Saint Dharma? The interest in Wolf Saint Dharma's tone was getting thicker. This last was interesting. Not only was she intelligent, her reaction was also extremely fast. With just a few words, she was able to pinch the opponent's weakness. This kind of person, if she was allowed to continue living in this world. If she grew up, how terrifying would she be? Wolf Saint Dharma. Yi Qingqian, who had applied the ointment, had been paying attention to their situation. Now hearing Wolf Saint Dharma's interesting tone, his heart trembled. Her pretty face immediately paled, and her beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at Lang Shengfa. She is very cunning. You must not be fooled. The Wolf Shengfa glanced sideways at her worried face and chuckled. You're worried that I'll fall for her? Yi Qingjian didn't reply. She was indeed worried. Yi Qingluo could even capture the high and mighty overlord, not to mention this Wolf Saint technique which allowed her to seduce him so easily. You and her are different, the Wolf Saint Law said in a comforting tone. Following that, his gaze shifted back to Yiqing Luo. The more intelligent a person is, the person who will threaten this sacred technique usually won't live for long. His gaze made Yiqing Luo shudder. His body seemed to be frozen by frost, unable to move. Wolf Saint Technique suddenly stretched out his hand and pinched Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. He forced her to look into his eyes. The oppressive feeling from the Wolf Saint Technique made Yiqing Luo's body tremble uncontrollably. Even if she met a cultivator who was several profound grades higher than her, Yiqing Luo had never been afraid of anyone. But Wolf Saint Dharma made her develop such a feeling. Yes, she was afraid. Afraid of the Wolf Saint Technique's approach. Chapter 1092. I would like to see after I kill you, how will his lordship deal with me after his plan fails? The Wolf Saint Technique's palm slowly slid from her jaw to her slender neck. His cold and terrifying eyes were emitting a bloodthirsty murderous intent. He was avenging Yiqing Qian. To avenge her earlier by strangling Yiqing Qian's neck. Yiqing Luo held her breath, the strong pressure made her have no chance to resist. This Wolf Saint magic. He was at least a sky-profound cultivator. Only a supreme expert above the sky-profound realm would be able to give her such a strong pressure. A drop of cold sweat dripped down from her forehead. This drop of cold sweat fell into Wolf Saint Magic's eyes. It made the smile in his eyes even more bloodthirsty as it was filled with scarlet. His 5 fingers gradually tightened. Beside her ears she could still hear his low sneer, "Everything that you have done to protect her, I will make her pay for it one by one." Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. He wasn't joking. He really wanted to kill her. Could it be? He really didn't care about the King of Darkness's plan? Didn't the dark forces all serve the King of Darkness, obeying his every command? This Wolf Saint Magic and the King of Darkness. What was their relationship? She didn't have time to think about these questions. She absolutely could not lose her life here. The Devil class's students were still waiting for her to return. If DMO Xian knew that she came to the Dark Forces territory alone, he would definitely be worried. His current identity was Supreme MO. She couldn't let DMO Xian's identity, which he had painstakingly built, be destroyed in her hands. Absolutely. She couldn't die. Her half-squinted eyes gradually surfaced a layer of determined luster. She bit her lower lip so hard that it started to bleed. The palm on his neck tightened its grip even more. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and forced herself to hold on to her will as she opened her 5 fingers. A bolt of lightning-like current ran through her slender fingers, emitting a zzz sound of electricity. Wolf Saint Magic was stunned by this sound. He immediately loosened his grip and looked sideways at the direction of the lightning, making use of this gap. Yiqing Luo lifted her leg and kicked fiercely towards Wolf Saint Magic's abdomen. The force was so strong that even the Saint Technique, who was as tall as a wolf, groaned in pain. His fingers dropped from Yiqing Luo's neck, whereas Yiqing Luo had already stepped on his chest as she flew up. His footwork moved quickly, and the flowing electric current in his hand suddenly formed an electric ball-shaped object. Thunderclap technique. She flipped her palm, and the electric ball directly smashed towards the Wolf Saint Technique. Because of Yiqing Luo's set of combat skills, she had defeated the Wolf Saint Technique, which was continuously retreating. He felt humiliated in his heart, and a strong profound chi broke out of his body and was about to attack Yiqing Luo. A bolt of lightning struck the top of his head. Zzz, the electric current exploded on the Wolf Holy Law's body. Rumble. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled. The electric current lingered on the Wolf Saint Law's body, constantly flowing with electricity. At the same time, Yiqing Luo swiftly summoned Chi-Chi and leaped onto Chi-Chi's back. Break through the enchantment and leave the tunnel. Chi-Chi let out a tiger roar, and its tiger claws lashed out. The huge tiger body directly flew towards the entrance of the tunnel. Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Ling saw this and held Yiqing Qian's hand in panic. "Sister, you can't let Yiqing Luo escape. She can't leave." Yiqing Qian didn't panic at all. On the contrary, her lips curled into a cold arc. "Coming to the Dark Forces territory. Still want to leave so easily?" Chapter 1093. At the entrance of the tunnel, a ray of white glow dispersed. A transparent barrier separated Chi-Chi from the rest. After Chi-Chi was knocked away, it swiftly opened up its tiger claws and slashed towards that white glow. However, when the white sharp tiger claws got close to that white glow, it still couldn't avoid the consequence of being sent flying again. Enchantment. The enchantment conjured by the dark forces. Even Chi-Chi, the sacred white tiger, was unable to break the enchantment. To take the opportunity to escape from the tunnel, it was probably impossible. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and forced herself to calm down. She stopped Chi-Chi from ramming against the enchantment again. This enchantment, Chi-Chi was unable to break it. Forcefully ramming against it would instead cause Chi-Chi to get injured. Damn enchantment. Her understanding towards enchantment wasn't deep, and she could only rely on her own ability to conjure a protective enchantment. As for breaking the enchantment, she had no idea how to do it. How to break the enchantment and leave this place? Could it be that she had to wait for Diamo Xian to find out from the devil class students that she had gone to save Yi Fengyu alone and rush over to save her? No. No way. If Diamo Xian came, it would be easy for the main courtyard to discover his identity. Moreover, she wasn't someone who liked to place her hopes on others. She had to resolve the crisis before Diamo Xian rushed over. Just as Yiqing Luo was pondering, she suddenly felt an oppressive pressure coming from her back. Yiqing Luo felt a chill down her spine as she felt a sharp pain in her head. She quickly regained her senses and patted Chi-Chi's fur. Chi-Chi leaped up and dashed towards the other side of the tunnel, avoiding the attack from behind. Yiqing Luo turned her head and saw Wolf Saint Magic, who was chasing after her under the Thunder Crash Arts. Wolf Saint Magic wasn't affected by the Thunder Crash Arts. Only the cloak on his body had been torn to shreds by the Thunder Crash Arts. The cloak covering his head had also been torn into pieces. He looked extremely disheveled. Yiqing Luo finally saw Wolf Saint Magic's face clearly. That was a 40-over-year-old middle-aged man. His facial features were dignified, emitting a chilly aura. Especially that pair of sinister venomous eyes, just one look and one's heart would tremble. Little girl? Wolf Shengfa's voice was filled with thick murderous intent and anger. You are the first person who has dared to put me in such a difficult position. He laughed coldly in a low voice. His tall and slender body trembled with laughter. The imposing manner became increasingly majestic, almost oppressing Yiqing Luo, as if 1,000-catty boulder was pressing down on her shoulders. Her heart was trembling and her eyes were filled with disbelief. The thunderclap incantation was actually unable to cause any damage to him. This was the reward for clearing the second floor of the Purgatory Tower. At the same time that she was training the students of the Devil class, she did not forget to enter the Spiritual Energy Treasure Ground and enter the Azure Dew Bracelet. Under Old Man Song's guidance, she stabilized her profound level and increased her strength. Of course, he did not forget to challenge the second floor of the Purgatory Tower. The reward for the second level was the Thunderclap incantation. Although she had just started practicing, she could only release an electric ball the size of a fist. But Old Man Song had said it before. Even if it was just a small electric ball, if it were to smash onto a profound practitioner of the Earth Profound Realm, it would definitely cause that profound practitioner to be unable to move for 3 days. But for the Wolf Saint technique, it only tore his cloak and didn't even leave any external injuries on his body. This Wolf Saint technique, just how powerful was he? Wolf Saint technique looked at the astonished young master as he gave a cold smile. Following that, his palm wind moved. That palm wind turned into a raging hurricane, bringing along a strong air wave as it swept across. The entire tunnel started to shake. Chapter 1094. Yiqing Luo was pressured by that burst of energy and her body became unstable as she tumbled down from Chi-Chi's back. Before she could react, Wolf Saint Magic's figure had already enlarged in front of her. His motive? It was to force her and Chi-Chi to separate. Chi-Chi was a sacred beast and its speed was unparalleled. But she was an earth-profound 4th-grade cultivator. Even if she possessed the so-called strange footwork, Wolf Saint Magic was confident that he could find her flaw. Wolf Saint Magic indeed had this thought. Among all the martial arts in the world, only speed could not be defeated. Then, his speed, was it faster than hers? Howl, howl. Chi-Chi saw its own master being approached by the enemy. It immediately pounced over, trying to tear Wolf Saint Magic into pieces. However, the moment it pounced in the direction of the Wolf Saint technique, it suddenly stopped. Wolf Saint Magic didn't turn back but raised his palm. Instantly, a white fluorescent light shot out. Chi-Chi's huge tiger body suddenly froze in mid-air, its claws and head seemed to have collided with something. Immediately that transparent barrier was faintly discernible. Barrier. Another barrier. Chi howled a few times as it gathered all its strength and charged towards Wolf Saint Magic's direction. But every time they charged they would crash into the barrier. Even the sacred beast's sharp claws were unable to break the barrier. No wonder Wolf Saint Magic dared to kill all the black-robed protectors after arriving at the underground tunnel. He didn't need to worry about the sacred beast White Tiger, nor the existence of the divine dragon, because his barrier could completely restrain the sacred beast or the divine dragon. Even if the sacred beast or the divine dragon could break the barrier in the end, there was no harm. Before the barrier was broken, Wolf Saint Magic could totally toy with Yiqing Luo in the palm of his hand. Yiqing Luo only felt her entire body turning cold as her back pressed against the uneven wall. Her charming eyes were fixated on Wolf Saint Magic. The glower flame fan in her hand was ready to strike. Wolf Saint Magic closed in on her 2 steps away. Stopping and looking at her, scared? Yiqing Luo kept silent. Wolf Saint Magic laughed instead of getting angry. His eyes were filled with interest. To teach a proud and unyielding lass to such a fearful degree, this Saint Magic feels carefree. His aggressive gaze made her feel nauseous. It wasn't a look of interest. Instead, it was the kind of twisted expression one would feel when one saw one's prey struggling in one's hands, yet unable to escape from one's grasp. He moved closer to her and pressed his lips against her ear. A cold and frosty aura sprayed on her skin. This made Yiqing Luo feel even more disgusted. Disgusting goosebumps appeared all over his body. The Wolf Saint Law noticed this and deliberately stretched out his finger to stroke the goosebumps on her neck. He chuckled. So sensitive. Do you hate this Saint Law that much? His voice became deeper and deeper. The middle-aged man's aura carried a bone-chilling coldness. Yiqing Luo's scalp went numb as she endured the disgust and turned her head away. The gourd flame fan in his hand had already been infused with profound energy, ready to find a suitable opportunity to strike him in one blow. But he heard a cold voice with a smile in his ear. Who taught you the thunderclap incantation? Thunderclap arts? Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk. Why did he suddenly ask about the thunderclap incantation? Could it be, is the thunder crash art the same as teleportation? After using it, people will immediately recognize me? Then what was the reward she had obtained after going through so many hardships in the Purgatory Tower? Chapter 1095. Oh. Yiqing Luo spat impatiently. Playing with words in front of her? She had played this trick countless of times. Could he consider sparing her life? He only said he would consider, not sure. Even if he was sure, she might not believe it. Wolf Saint Magic wiped the saliva off his face. A murderous intent flashed past his eyes. But he still suppressed the anger in his heart and spat out, Who taught you the thunderclap incantation? Where is that person? Where is the secret to the thunderclap incantation? Leave it to me. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. His 3 consecutive questions clearly expressed his desire for the thunderclap incantation. This might be the chance for her to delay the time and survive. As long as she had something he was interested in, he could not kill her. As though he had seen through her inner thoughts, Wolf Saint Magic's eyes turned hazy. Suddenly, his broad palm landed on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. 5 fingers exerted a little force. A burst of profound qi instantly scattered the crimson outfit she was wearing. The belt loosened and half of her indecent clothes were scattered, revealing her fair shoulder. Yiqing Luo panicked, her eyes widened in disbelief. How dare you? He actually wanted to use the most despicable means to force her to reveal the thunderclap incantation. It wouldn't take her life. But it was more unacceptable than killing her. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were cold. Profound qi wrapped around the glower flame fan and flipped it swiftly in her palm. A wind blade went straight for Wolf Shengfa's neck. Wolf Saint Magic snorted lightly, waste of energy. With a light lift of his finger, he easily blocked the wind blade. Yiqing Luo took the opportunity to display her footwork and escaped from Wolf Saint Magic's restraint in a few steps. She speedily ran towards Chi-Chi's direction, condensing profound qi on her feather fan and drew out countless wind blades. The bewitching red glow was like a sharp blade, cutting on that transparent barrier. At the same time, she silently called Chi-Chi's name, attempting to summon Chi-Chi back into the pet space. But no matter how the red sharp blade struck the barrier, it was still unable to move. The barrier was still firm and indestructible. He couldn't summon Chi-Chi back to the pet space either. A boundary was a space that separated the space within the boundary from the outside world. She wouldn't be able to summon her battle pets if they were in different parallel spaces. What was going on with this barrier? How could it be so strong? If even the people of the dark forces could create such a powerful barrier, they would be able to do so. Then there was no need for them to resist at all. The dark forces could just open up a barrier and attack the upper realm. Roar roar, Chi-Chi did not give up and tried to break free from the barrier. Yiqing Luo watched as Chi-Chi was bounced back by the enchantment again and again. The huge tiger head and tiger eyes were scarlet red and there were traces of blood dripping down along the white fur. Her heart tightened as she looked at Chi-Chi comfortingly. He signaled for it not to forcefully crash into the barrier for the time being. At this moment, the Wolf Saint technique once again stuck close to him like a ghost. "Little lass, you haven't been impregnated yet, right?" Wolf Saint technique sneered coldly as his gaze swept past her fair skin and his large palm directly touched it. "Either tell me the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation, or this Saint technique will use. This Saint technique's method to make you say it obediently." Yiqing Luo only felt a wave of disgust. Chapter 1096. The Wolf Sacred Technique said disapprovingly, "It's very common for a man to have a few women outside. Protect her who is an obedient woman, so she naturally understands this sacred technique's intentions." He raised his voice slightly when he said this. It was obvious that he had purposely told this to Yiqing Qian, who was not too far away. Yiqing Qian suppressed the fluster in her heart as she forced a gentle smile on her face. "Yes, I believe Wolf Saint Dharma has feelings for me. Even if Wolf Saint Dharma were to deal with you on the spot, it's merely to make you reveal the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation." Not sure if he was trying to convince Yiqing Luo or himself. Yiqing Qian's voice had no confidence at all. Her eyelashes fluttered as she stared at the alluring Yiqing Luo, whose shoulders were half exposed. The more uneasy she felt. It was because she had taken the initiative to climb onto the Sacred Wolf Technique's bed that she had gained the Sacred Wolf Technique's favor. It could be said that the Wolf Saint was obsessed with her body. But, if the Wolf Saint technique was also infatuated with Yiqing Luo's body and couldn't bear to kill her, then what should he do? The uneasiness in her heart made Yiqing Qian unable to witness Wolf Saint technique doing such a thing to Yiqing Luo in front of her. Just as Yiqing Luo and the Wolf Saint technique exchanged a few rounds, Yiqing Luo was suppressed by the Wolf Saint technique to the extent that she had no room to retaliate, and when she was pushed against the wall corner, Yiqing Qian finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She got up with Yiqing Ling's support and said eagerly, "Yiqing Luo, you'd better tell me everything that the Wolf Saint technique wants to know." At this moment, Wolf Saint technique's hand had already tugged open the crimson robe that Yiqing Luo was wearing. Hearing Yiqing Qian's words, his hands paused. Yiqing Luo vaguely discovered that in the eyes of Wolf Saint technique, a trace of joy flashed past. Joy. Yes, it was joy. She was not mistaken. Was the Wolf Saint Dharma rejoicing that Yiqing Qian had stopped his actions? This knowledge made Yiqing Luo's heart heavy. She heaved a sigh of relief when Yiqing Qian stopped the Wolf Saint technique's following actions. But at the same time, it also gave her a lot of pressure. Although this was the first time he had seen the Wolf Saint technique. But Yiqing Luo was very clear that Wolf Saint Fa's character was absolutely arrogant and disobedient. Even if it was the King of Darkness, he wouldn't necessarily listen to orders. However, he was still able to sit firmly on the position of holy technique in the dark forces. It must have something to do with his powerful strength. Yiqing Luo had a deep understanding of his power in the battle. Such an arrogant and despotic saint technique that did not play by the rules, Yiqing Qian's words could easily sway him. The joy in Wolf Saint Magic's eyes was obviously because of Yiqing Qian's obstruction. She cared about him. She didn't want him to touch other women. Therefore he stopped what he was doing. Wolf Saint Dharma's concern towards Yiqing Qian indicated that he would kill himself for her. Even if he had to destroy the King of Darkness's plan, he would have to do so. Even if he couldn't get the whereabouts of the thunderclap technique. As long as Yiqing Qian opened her mouth, he would definitely take action. Yiqing really did not expect. This 40-over-year-old middle-aged man was a man who could be Yiqing Qian's father. It was a bone-deep love for her. However, Yiqing Qian didn't realize that she was afraid of losing Wolf Saint Fa's backing and had opened her mouth to stop him, which made Wolf Saint Fa mistakenly think that she was deeply in love with him. Yiqing Jian racked her brains to dissuade Yiqing Luo. "Don't you still have the Overlord?" Don't you want to be chaste for His Majesty? Diamo-xian. Chapter 1097. She would not let the Holy Wolf technique succeed. Even if he were to die, he would never let the Wolf Saint technique taint her body. She couldn't tell him the thunderclap spell either. Otherwise it would implicate Old Man Tsang. The matter of the Azure Dew bracelet would also be known to the people of Nirvana Realm. He saw Yiqing Luo had an obvious reaction when she heard Diamo-xian's name. Yiqing Jian continued, "No one can stop Wolf Saint Magic's decision, not even his lordship. For the sake of our sisterhood, I will give you this piece of advice." Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips, seeing that Wolf Saint Fa had already let go of her shoulder. His gaze fell onto Yiqing Qian without blinking. She immediately tightened her clothes. For Yiqing Qian's sake, Wolf Saint Dharma should not make a move on her for the time being. He thought that Yiqing Qian was jealous. If he really loved Yiqing Qian, he would definitely not make a move on her at this moment. The Wolf Saint Law wanted to know the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation, so for the time being, he wouldn't take her life. And with Yiqing Qian around, he had no way to use such despicable methods to force her to say it out. Then, he would definitely bring her out of the tunnel and into his territory. As long as there was a chance to leave the barrier, it should be no problem for him to teleport away with Chi-Chi. As expected. Seeing Yiqing Jian using her emotions and reasoning to persuade Yiqing Luo to reveal the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation, Wolf Saint technique could no longer suppress the ecstasy in his heart. He laughed heartily. He didn't bother about Yiqing Luo's side. To him, pinching Yiqing Luo to death was as easy as pinching an ant. Yiqing Qian's face turned pale when she saw him rushing towards her. She thought that he was blaming her for ruining his plans. However, after the Wolf Saint technique approached her, he reached out and wrapped his arms around her soft body, burying his head in her neck. The middle-aged man in his 40s smiled like a young man who just had his first awakening of love. That hearty laughter was something that Yiqing Qian had never heard in these few days that she had been accompanying him. Wolf Saint Dharma didn't care about Yiqing Ling beside him. He didn't bother about Yiqing Luo who was stuck to the corner of the wall, thinking of ways to escape. He directly clasped her lower jaw and kissed her on the lips. Strong and domineering. Fervent and unrestrained. Instantly the style became fiery hot. Not far away, Yiqing Luo could hear Yiqing Qian panting from being kissed, or moaning from the Wolf Saint technique. Yiqing Ling blushed as she listened and moved aside awkwardly. Yiqing Luo was expressionless as her thoughts were all on how to escape from the tunnel. In any case, the Wolf Saint technique would never be interested in performing a live broadcast. So be it kissing and touching. Once he was aroused, the Wolf Sacred technique would naturally want to leave the tunnel in a hurry. At that time she could seize the opportunity to escape. About the time it took to burn half a stick of incense, the Wolf Saint technique's blood was already surging. He couldn't wait to do Yiqing Qian on the spot. Yiqing Qian's clothes were also in a mess. Her clothes hung loosely on her body. She looked extremely flirtatious. Wolf Saint Dharma pulled Yiqing Qian into his arms, his eyes filled with longing. Immediately, he carried Yiqing Qian and was about to leave the tunnel. Yiqing Qian was still rational. Her little hand grabbed the front of Wolf Saint Technique's clothes and reminded in a sweet voice, "Wolf Saint Technique? Yiqing Luo is still here, she is very cunning." Her voice paused as she sensed the burning hot body that was sticking close to her stiffened. Yiqing Qian reacted and realized that she was still calling Yiqing Luo's name under such circumstances. Her motive was too obvious. Chapter 1098. Wolf Saint Magic rubbed Yiqing Qian's head. She didn't know if he believed her words or not. He turned around and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo forced herself to calm down. Everything was going according to her expectations. As long as the enchantment was released and she left this tunnel, she would be able to escape. Devil classes students were still waiting for her. The competition was still waiting for her. She must rush back. She must not let her brother fight alone. The oppressive pressure covered the sky and covered the earth. Wolf Saint Magic's huge palm directly clasped her head. The pain made her head feel like it was about to split open. In a blur, she heard Wolf Saint Magic's cold sneer, "Other than Lord, there is no one else who can escape from this Saint Magic." He was a sly old fox. How could he not see through Yiqing Luo's plan? Trying to escape? He wanted to see how she was going to escape after he knocked her out and brought her away. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth as blood oozed out from her lips. But she still couldn't withstand the attack of the pain, causing her consciousness to be in a mess. Her eyes gradually turned blurry. Bam! A loud sound was aimed at Yiqing Luo's head. Wolf Saint Magic, who wanted to knock her out, suddenly hugged the disheveled lady in his arms and quickly retreated. A burst of majestic profound chi, like a raging wave, covered the sky and attacked Wolf Saint Magic. The entire tunnel's ground started to crack as gravel flew everywhere. Wolf Saint Magic dodged in a panic, carrying another person in his arms. After retreating out of the attack range, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. The hurricane dispersed, revealing a tall and slender figure. A blood-red robe like a burning flame. Wolf Saint Magic frowned as he looked in shock at the man who walked into the tunnel. His expression suddenly changed. It's actually you. Losing the support of Wolf Saint Magic. Yiqing Luo's entire body went limp as she fell backwards weakly. Vaguely, she felt a powerful energy force that forced the Wolf Saint technique away. Following that, her body was brought into a warm embrace. A refreshing and serene aura lingered in the air. Her tensed nerves, tensed-up petite body finally relaxed slowly. Her head rested in his arms. There was a faint smile at the corner of her eyes, showing that she was at ease. "Ah Xian, you're here?" Her Ah Xian still rushed over. Just when she thought she was really going to be taken away by the Holy Wolf technique, it appeared in front of her like a god. Her Ah Xian was here. They would definitely be able to leave safely. Because Ah Xian was her god. The man who was hugging her froze when he heard her mumble his name. His handsome brows furrowed slightly, showing some impatience. I never thought that the dignified Death God Castle's castle master would actually come to such a small place. Wolf Saint Fa recognized the man in front of him at first glance. To be able to wear such a demonic and enchanting blood-red brocade robe in such a cold and noble manner. A man who was always expressionless, like an iceberg. There was only one Death God Castle Lord, Zhu Wuxia. Could it be that this lofty and unyielding young lass is your woman? Wolf Saint Technique squinted his eagle eyes as he looked at Zhu Wuxia, who was hugging Yiqing Luo's waist tightly. Zhu Wuxia didn't reply. He only lowered his eyelids silently, looking at the messy clothes in his arms. Her ears were forced to bleed by Wolf Saint Technique's strong profound chi pressure. His dark and gloomy eyes were gradually covered with a layer of frost. You hurt her. 4 indifferent words, but it was filled with an extremely cold chill. Chapter 1099. Zhu Wuxia didn't look at the lady in Wolf Saint Dharma's arms. He pursed his thin lips as his indifferent eyes were filled with chilly emotions. Silently, a powerful aura was emitted from his body. Wolf Saint Dharma's expression changed. You want to fight with me? Zhu Wuxia ignored his shock and astonishment as he changed his posture and held Yiqing Luo in his arms. He used his own actions to answer Wolf Saint Dharma. His blood-red robe fluttered like a huge red dragon, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. A ray of profound light erupted from his body as it lingered in his palm. Without hesitation, it struck towards Wolf Saint Dharma's face. This aura was extremely pressurizing. Wolf Saint Dharma avoided it but still didn't retaliate. Only his eagle eyes were deep as he fixed his gaze on Zhu Wuxia. Are you serious? Whoever hurts her will be an eternal enemy. Spitting out these few words indifferently, Zhu Wuxian's palm continued to move and the entire tunnel instantly fell into a never-ending hurricane profound light. That intense pressure made Yiqing Luo's spirit root unable to stand still. Her entire body was swept up by that hurricane and fiercely smashed against the uneven wall. Wolf Saint Dharma protected the screaming person in his arms as he opened up his profound chi to form a semicircle barrier in front of him. It blocked the raging hurricane and Xian Qi outside. Although Yiqing Qian's profound grade had been transformed by the profound Yin Qi and had already advanced to the earth profound grade. But this body's innate talent was still stuck at the profound grade. At this moment, Zhu Wuxia didn't show any mercy as his powerful and majestic force enveloped the entire tunnel. Yiqing Qian couldn't withstand this kind of pressure at all. Immediately a mouthful of blood was sprayed onto Wolf Saint Dharma, splattering his entire face with blood. Yiqing Qian's face turned pale as she trembled to help him wipe his face and opened her mouth to apologize. But the current her didn't even have the strength to open her mouth. That powerful airwave constantly squeezed her 5 viscera and 6 bowels. She didn't have any strength to move at all. Not to mention raising her hand to help him wipe his face. Wolf Saint Dharma held her little hand and a gentle burst of profound energy was injected into her body. It protected her heart meridians to prevent it from being shattered by Zhu Wuxin. Zhu Wuxin's actions angered the wolf's sacred technique. His eagle eyes were deep and his face was filled with anger. Death God Castle's Castle Master, are you declaring war on me? Yes. His answer was straightforward and decisive without any hesitation. His indifferent eyes were devoid of emotion. He was clearly doing something extremely heartwarming. However, she couldn't sense any emotion from him. Even when he looked at the girl in his arms, the coldness in his eyes did not fade. This made the Wolf Saint technique a little confused as to what Zhu Wuxin was thinking. Wolf Saint technique listened to his unhesitant reply and instead fell into deep thought. Making an enemy out of Zhu Wuxin in this situation was extremely unwise. Where exactly did this Zhu Wuxin come from? Even his lord had no way of knowing. He only knew that this man who had mysteriously become the castle master of Death God Castle. His strength was not inferior to the master of the Imperial Palace, Di Zun. Compared to the Death God Castle's castle master, he had a powerful and mysterious background. However, no one knew his true identity. Even his lordship was willing to cooperate with Zhu Wuxin. If he really became enemies with Zhu Wuxin, the collaboration between the Dark Forces and Death God Castle, it was definitely impossible. Chapter 1100. After Yi Qing Luo rested for a moment, her thoughts gradually cleared up. In his days, he seemed to have heard the Holy Wolf Technique's words. She couldn't help but frown slightly. She tried to open her eyes, which were still a little heavy. She wanted to focus and listen to what they were talking about. The Dark Forces had sent an invitation to Xian? Did the Dark Forces want to cooperate with the Imperial Palace? What ambition did Xian have? Does he want to be like the Dark Forces and unify the Nirvana realm? No, that's impossible. This thought had just flashed past her mind and was immediately denied by Yi Qing Luo. If DMO Xian wanted to unify the Nirvana realm, it would be a piece of cake. Of course, the premise was that the people from the upper realm would not intervene in this matter. However, it was only her personal feeling. DMO Xian did not have the ambition to unify the Nirvana realm. Otherwise, how could he have abandoned the matters of the Imperial Palace and wandered around her? A truly ambitious person would not be like this. Suddenly, a cold voice floated over his head. If you hurt her, the cooperation is invalid. This voice was not DMO Xian's voice. But the familiarity made her body stiffen. Immediately, the splitting headache and heaviness in his eyelids disappeared. This was Zhu Wuxin. The embrace she snuggled into was Zhu Wuxin's embrace. This person was not DMO Xian. Yi Qing Luo suddenly stretched out her hand as she pushed Zhu Wuxin's chest. Let go of me. However, Zhu Wuxin hugged her even tighter, almost as if he wanted to knead her whole body into his. He did not speak. But the action made Yi Qing Luo furious. His struggling movements became more and more ferocious. Wolf Shengfa, who was standing not too far away, curled his lips in disdain when he saw this. Castle Lord of Death God Castle, you've done so much for her, but this little girl doesn't appreciate it at all. Zhu Wuxin, who had been expressionless, suddenly raised his head. His calm and emotionless eyes now revealed a biting cold killing intent. It seemed to be warning the Wolf Saint to shut up. Wolf Saint Technique was stunned by her gaze as he stared at the struggling Yi Qing Luo for some time. Suddenly he laughed out loud. Indeed, the word love was the greatest calamity in the world. No matter how strong a man was, he had to submit to the word love. Unexpectedly, Zhu Wuxin, who had always been cold and arrogant, was so arrogant. He was actually willing to sacrifice himself for a woman without asking for anything in return. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo's hand was grabbing onto Zhu Wuxin's collar while the other hand was pressing against his chest, as she bellowed in an evil tone, Zhu Wuxin, let me go. Where are your hands touching? Take it away. She didn't notice the Holy Wolf Technique's words at all. Zhu Wuxin seemed to have lost his patience and loosened his grip slightly. Just as Yi Qing Luo was about to escape from his embrace, she heard a cold voice ringing beside her ear. If you don't want others to see your body, don't move. Yi Qing Luo was stunned. This voice sent a chill down her spine. Then he came to a realization. She lowered her head and looked at her messy clothes. His clothes, which had been shaken off by the Wolf Saint Technique, were already scattered around his waist. Her thin undergarments revealed half of her shoulders, revealing a small pocket embroidered with cherry blossoms. In the process of struggling, it became more and more scattered. Zhu Wuxin hugged her tightly, but it was only to cover her exposed skin. Yiqing Luo gave an ah as her face instantly flushed red. She let go of Zhu Wu Xian's collar and speedily pulled up the loose clothes around her waist, pulling it over her body. Just at this moment, the Holy Wolf technique took the opportunity when Zhu Wu Xian had no time to care about himself to bring Yiqing Luo away. Zhu Wu Xian's gaze turned cold as he raised his palm to create a hurricane, blocking the Holy Wolf technique's path. Because of this action, Yiqing Luo's undergarments scattered even further. She instinctively leaned into Zhu Wu Xian's embrace, using this to block the exposed spring scenery. Chapter 1101. Brother D, the barrier has been unlocked. A clear and melodious voice that sounded like a silver bell rang out from outside the tunnel. Wolf Saint Law, who was about to rush out of the tunnel, was blocked by Zhu Wu Xian's hurricane. He turned to the side to avoid the hurricane but bumped into a soft body. Ah! The melodious voice cried out in pain as she fell to the side. A strong and powerful arm gently supported that lady. It was just a casual support, and after she stood firm, he retracted his hand. However, that lady took the opportunity and directly snuggled into that arm, hugging his waist tightly, not willing to let go. Wolf Saint Law was stunned. When he saw the tunnel entrance and the person who walked in, his expression was filled with shock. The person who walked in was dressed in a purple luxurious robe. Because of the hurricane, his sleeves fluttered in the wind, creating a stream of light. A head of black hair, not tied up or tied, casually scattered over his shoulders. He looked extremely casual and extremely lazy. What was even more breathtaking was that peerless face of his. His long and narrow demonic peach blossom eyes seemed to bear all the splendor of the world, sparkling with an intoxicating luster. However, there was a hint of chilliness in his eyes. Overlord? Wolf Saint Law recognized the man who was known as a legend in Nirvana realm at one glance. He hugged Yiqing Qian and retreated a few steps as he looked at Dmo Xian vigilantly. He had heard about Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo's relationship from Yiqing Qian. One was Zhu Wu Xian, and the other was Dmo Xian. A little girl had actually attracted the attention of two great experts, and both of them had gathered here. But the current situation was a little interesting. So interesting that he temporarily didn't want to bring Yiqing Qian away, and wanted to stay to watch the show. Yiqing Luo's hand, which was holding onto her robe, paused. She heard a lady's gentle voice. That voice was very familiar. It was the voice which had appeared several times in her dreams, making her heart surge with uneasiness. Subconsciously, she turned her head stiffly and looked towards the direction of the voice. She froze on the spot with this one look. Her body completely tensed up as her pupils dilated. At the entrance of the tunnel, the hurricane dispersed, revealing that peerless figure. Yiqing Luo's gaze met with that pair of chilly peach blossom eyes. It was like a bottomless pool. Dmo Xian, he came. He came with his own face. Not Senior Mo but Dmo Xian. Brother D. Sensing the man beside her gradually turning cold, the woman tugged at Dmo Xian's sleeve as she called out softly. Yiqing Luo's vision then followed the voice and fixed onto that lady. Just one glance and Yiqing Luo felt as though she had been struck by lightning as she fell into a daze in Zhu Wu Xian's arms. His mind was blank. His taut nerves began to crack one by one. Her mind was filled with the image of that woman. She didn't even notice that she was still in Zhu Wuxin's arms and had already forgotten about the Wolf Saint technique that was not far away, nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. That jade-green figure had soft curves. She was curvy where she should be, curvy where she should be. Draped in a jade-colored soft muslin, she looked as elegant as a fairy. Her glossy black hair was tied into a unique bun, with an exquisite golden hairpin. That face was so beautiful that it could make one's soul swoon. Coupled with that gentle-looking, yet like a little dragon girl, cold and pure temperament. It made this lady look even more alluring. Her beauty was different from Yiqing Luo's ostentatious and enchanting beauty. Her beauty was extremely tranquil, making one feel pity for her. Chapter 1102. More importantly, Yiqing Luo had seen this lady before. In the profound pagoda's test of strength, the second stage was the resentment stage of the gates of hell. He had seen this woman before. In the dreamland, Dmo Xian and Miss Feng were known as the Golden Boy and Jade Girl, a match made in heaven. That Lady Feng whose beauty was second only to Dmo Xian. She was actually a real existence. Moreover, with Dmo Xian, he was really so familiar with him. Dmo Xian did not like others to touch him. He would never come into contact with anyone else. But, however, he took the initiative to wrap his arms around the woman's shoulders. He allowed her to nestle in his arms. As Yi Qing Luo looked on, her eyes faintly revealed a chilly glint. That position should belong to her alone. Apart from her, no other woman was allowed to approach that position. But he, in front of her. She allowed another woman to occupy the position that belonged to her. She was still the same woman who made her feel uneasy from the bottom of her heart. Their eyes met and they stared blankly at each other. No one broke the silence. That lady's beautiful eyes roamed around as it moved back and forth between Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo for a moment. Pursing her red lips, her gentle eyes gradually dimmed. Then she smiled and pretended to be surprised. "Brother D, did you call me here to break this barrier to save these two?" That smile was devastatingly beautiful. She was like a pure and untainted fairy, holy and elegant. This must be Brother D's friend. They look like a good match. As she spoke, she covered her lips with her slender fingers and chuckled. There was a tinge of envy in her tone. To be able to go through thick and thin together in the most dangerous times, this kind of relationship is so enviable. A good match? Share weal and woe? Envy? Yi Qing Luo's ears were filled with that lady's words. She looked away and suddenly realized that she was still nestled in Zhu Wuxin's arms with her clothes in a mess. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Was this a prank from the heavens? The timing of Dmo Xian's arrival was just that coincidental. Her clothes were disheveled and she was in the arms of another man. He held the beauty in his arms, watching her in another man's arms. How ironic. That lady was still saying something, but Yi Qing Luo had no mood to continue listening. Perhaps it was because of the situation in the illusion. She had a natural aversion to that woman. As she listened to the woman's voice, she felt an indescribable sense of irritation. The woman's words were obviously meant to sow discord between her and Dmo Xian. A woman's intuition was always very accurate. The love rival in the illusion had become a reality. What should she do to protect her feelings? Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath, trying her best to calm her emotions down. He could not afford to lose his composure. Otherwise, his love rival would laugh at him. The first thing he had to do was to maintain a distance from Zhu Wuxin and tidy up his clothes. The next step was to prepare for the attack of his love rival. No matter what, before Dmo Xian expressed his stance, this man belonged to her. Of course, even if he expressed his position, her man was still her man. She left Zhu Wuxin's embrace expressionlessly. Yi Qing Luo slowly tidied up her clothes and combed her messy long hair before walking out from the corner. Zhu Wuxin remained silent. Yi Qing Luo walked directly towards Dmo Xian. Her expression was calm as her pink lips curled into a sweet and bewitching smile. Finally, she stood 2 steps away from Dmo Xian. She raised her eyes and met his gaze. His gaze was deep, pitch black like the abyss. Just one look made her sink into a bottomless abyss, with a sliver of cold intent. Chapter 1103. That lady was stunned as her gorgeous face revealed a tinge of astonishment. She blinked her beautiful eyes blankly, showing an innocent look. Immediately she raised her eyes and looked at Dmo Xian. "Brother D, she? Who is she?" While speaking, she still held onto Dmo Xian's hand and had not moved away. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, Dmo Xian then realized that the lady beside him was almost sticking onto his body. Dmo Xian's brows creased slightly as he stretched out his hand to pull Feng Ling away. A fair little hand was even faster than him. Slender 5 fingers directly clasped onto Feng Ling's arm. With a little strength, she directly pulled Feng Ling and pushed her to one side. Feng Ling cried out in pain from his grip. Her eyes instantly turned red as she cried out pitifully, "Brother D." Unexpectedly, her weak and pitiful look was like a weak little grass in the wind. She didn't get any response from Dmo Xian. At this moment, Dmo Xian's deep eyes were fixated on Yi Qing Luo. As though in his world, there was only Yi Qing Luo and only Yi Qing Luo could be seen. Yi Qing Luo was filled with disgust towards Feng Ling, naturally towards her pitiful look. She didn't have any sympathy. She directly walked to Dmo Xian's side and stood at the position where Feng Ling was standing earlier. Her lips curled as she gave Feng Ling an extremely enchanting and provocative smile. Immediately she turned back. Slender wrist hooked onto Dmo Xian's neck. Using a little strength, she pulled his head downwards. Diamo Xian cooperated by bending his waist. Yiqing Luo tiptoed and her pink lips covered his thin lips. Their lips touched and her wrist hooked even tighter. Her soft petite body fell into Diamo Xian's arms. She opened her mouth and aggressively left a bite mark on his lips. Diamo Xian's long eyelashes fluttered as he felt astonished by this little lady's action. Immediately, his heart was filled with ecstasy. Because he saw Yiqing Luo snuggling into Zhu Wu Xian's arms, the moment she took the initiative to kiss his lips, declaring her sovereignty, it all disappeared. Hugging her slender waist tightly, Diamo Xian immediately turned from passive to active. The tip of his tongue forcefully pried open her lips, her pearly white teeth. Just as he was about to enter, the fair little hand on his chest suddenly exerted force. Diamo Xian was caught off guard and was pushed away by the little woman. A silver line appeared at the corner of their lips. Yiqing Luo's cheeks blushed slightly, but her expression remained composed. He quirked his eyebrows and stared at Wind Chime's exquisite face, which alternated between red and green. As if she hadn't had enough, her pink tongue swept across her lips, sweeping the obvious silver strands into her mouth. His voice was hoarse and full of charm. "Tell me, who am I?" Windling staggered a few steps back as if she had suffered a huge blow. Her small face instantly turned pale, and her small body trembled violently. It was as if he was going to faint in the next second. Her eyes reddened and she trembled as she asked, "Brother Diwa?" Diamo Xian still did not look at Feng Ling. His gaze had always been fixated on Yiqing Luo. Looking at her enchanting smile and coquettishly licking her lips. That look of wanting more after tasting him made an inexplicable flame surge to his lower abdomen, causing his body to tense up. His little Luo heir, was she jealous? That was why she deliberately pushed him away when he wanted to taste the delicious taste of her own accord. Was she punishing him? He had to admit that this punishment was extremely torturous for him. The flame surging in his lower abdomen. As a man, a normal man, Diamo Xian naturally knew what was going on. This was the fire that little Luo heir had stirred up. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.